Chapter 1476. Tang Zheng retracted his gaze from the 3 saint runes and prepared for the final finishing process. His hands crossed and his fingers flipped as he formed a seal and directly slapped the sword. The sword's body emitted a bright light as it overflowed from the 9 revolving alchemy furnace. A sharp aura also gushed out, causing a cold wind to blow from behind. This aura was a sword chi that soared into the air and circled around the ceiling, leaving a bottomless sword mark on the wall. These were just sword marks that naturally flowed out, yet they had such power. One could see the divine might of the hidden mysterious sword. Success! Tang Zheng excitedly shouted. He suddenly stretched out his arm and shouted, "Sword, come!" So, the hidden profound sword soared into the air from the cauldron and flew towards Tang Zheng as fast as lightning. Although the hidden mysterious sword was fast, other eyes would only see a ray of light and it would be extremely difficult to capture its true trajectory. However, Tang Zheng's mind was connected with it and could clearly capture its trajectory. There was a huge difference between the two. Tang Zheng was slightly happy. This was the divine sword that he wanted. As the sword came, the wind blew and directly hit Tang Zheng's body. He was in the middle of it and could clearly feel the uniqueness of the hidden mysterious sword. However, he was as still as a pine tree. Although the wind was blowing outside, he was not affected in the slightest. Mo Xie and Li Xiaotian involuntarily retreated a few steps to avoid the sword chi like wind. They both frowned at the same time. It really is a divine sword, a divine sword. Mo Xie muttered to herself in a daze. Tang Zheng's eyes were like torches as he stared at the hidden mysterious sword that was getting closer and closer. The sword light completely filled his eyes, shining brightly. So, the sound of the sword breaking through the air became louder and louder. The sword was getting closer and closer, but it did not have the slightest intention of stopping. Tang Zheng shivered. What was going on? The hidden mystic sword pierced straight into his heart. Li Xiaotian screamed. No one would have thought that the hidden mysterious sword would actually pierce Tang Zheng's heart. This was illogical. How could the hidden mysterious sword harm its own master? He had never heard of a magic treasure harming its own owner. Mo Xie's pupils suddenly constricted, but he didn't shout out. His brows were completely knitted together as he sank into deep thought. Suddenly, a bright light burst out from his shrunken pupils. He was suddenly enlightened and could not hide his shock. He muttered to himself as if he was sleep-talking, No, this is not a backlash, but a divine sword entering the body. The divine sword entered his body. These 4 simple words had another layer of meaning. Li Xiaotian was extremely worried and confused. Only Mo Xie seemed to understand, but she was able to see through the mystery. The moment Tang Zheng's body was pierced by the hidden mystic sword, it was as if a spell had been cast on him. He could not move at all. It was as if he could not accept this reality. But in the next second, he found something strange. He didn't feel any pain, and there was no blood flowing out. The hidden sword did not hurt him. However, it had truly disappeared into his chest. At the same time, he found that there was a sword in his chest. This was a shrunken version of the hidden mystic sword. Its sharpness and power did not decrease at all, but its size was smaller. The hidden mystic sword quickly moved down from his heart, following his 8 meridians. It was like blood, unimpeded and unimpeded. When it encountered a narrow area, it immediately became small. It was so small that it was almost hard to detect it with the naked eye. Once it passed through, it quickly became big again. Large and small at will, this was the scene. Tang Zheng was completely shocked by this scene. He stared blankly at the hidden mystic sword's movement, but he had no way to stop it. In the end, he simply gave up resisting. He firmly believed in his heart, the hidden mystic sword is my own sword. How could it harm me? I should not doubt it. I should choose to believe it. Not long after, the hidden mystic sword arrived in his dantian, in front of Yuanying. Yuanying opened her eyes. Her entire body emitted a purple light that made the hidden mystic sword purple. The hidden mystic sword was like a stream flowing into the sea. Like a fish in water, it let out waves of cheerful sword cries. Yuanying moved. She extended her tender little hand. As if summoned, the hidden mystic sword immediately flew into Yuanying's hand. With the divine sword in hand, Yuanying and the hidden mystic sword seemed to merge into one. The sword qi and light that burst out filled the entire dantian. However, the sharp sword qi did not harm Tang Zheng's body. The two were in harmony. Tang Zheng looked at this scene and was shocked. He did not expect this at all. He did not know what this change meant. He tried to call the sword spirit. Maybe the sword spirit could answer all of this. Sword spirit, master. The sword spirit's voice immediately echoed in his mind. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. The sword spirit responded to him. This meant that the situation was not bad. Sword spirit, what's going on? Tang Zheng asked impatiently. Master, from today onwards, you and I have become one, so I can hide in your body. This way, it will be beneficial to both of us. You can use your flesh and blood to nourish me, and my sword qi will also work on your body. It is equivalent to the sword qi tempering your body at all times, making your body even stronger. My flesh and blood will nourish you, and your sword qi will refine me. Tang Zheng was stunned by these words, but in the next second he realized the deep meaning behind these words. The sword qi had tempered his body, which meant that his body would become even stronger. Because he had cultivated the primal chaos Vajra mantra, his body was already extremely strong, and had now reached the highest level of the primal chaos Vajra mantra, indestructible. He had an indestructible body, but it was not true that he was immortal. It was just that his body was indestructible, but now that the sword qi could refine his body would be strengthened even further, making it even harder for him to die. He couldn't hide his excitement. Master's flesh and blood will nourish me. The sword spirit will become even stronger, and my power will also become even greater. The sword spirit spoke endlessly. However, Tang Zheng realized another problem and hurriedly asked, You can absorb the soul now, and it can also make you stronger, right? Yes, this is not only useful to me. Once I absorb enough soul, I can also feed back to you, Master. Your Yuanying will also become stronger after being nourished by the soul. It's also useful for Yuanying. Tang Zheng was stunned. Yuanying had always been evolving, but now it seemed that there was still a lot of room for evolution. The soul would probably have an even greater effect on Yuanying. Everything in the world had a spirit, and if there was a spirit, there would be a soul. This was the core of everything. For example, humans had souls, animals had souls, and even plants had souls. If the mysterious hidden sword could absorb souls, then everything in the world would be its nourishment. This was truly terrifying. What kind of changes would this bring? Even he himself couldn't guess. But at least this was a piece of good news. As for absorbing souls, he wouldn't recklessly absorb them. If by chance he absorbed a little soul, then it wouldn't be a big deal. Then when I need you in battle, what will you do? Tang Zheng asked. The sword spirit said, As long as Master calls for me, I will naturally come out and fight for you. Mysterious hidden sword, come out. Tang Zheng immediately acted. As soon as his voice fell, the mysterious hidden sword appeared in his hand, as if it had appeared out of thin air. Moreover, it had already returned to its original size. Others might not know what was going on, but he was very clear. This was the mysterious hidden sword flying out of his Zifu at an extremely fast speed and appeared in his hand. This was not the slightest bit slower than when he summoned the mysterious hidden sword from Sumeru world. Moreover, the mysterious hidden sword could automatically return to his body, so he didn't have to worry about losing it. In the past, the mysterious hidden sword had to be taken into Sumeru world on his own initiative, but now he didn't need to. Feeling the subtle difference, Tang Zheng was overjoyed. Mo Xie and Li Xiaotian saw the mysterious hidden sword appear again, and immediately opened their eyes wide, staring straight at him. Li Xiaotian impatiently asked, Tang Zheng, how did you do it? What is going on? Tang Zheng held the mysterious hidden sword in his hand, and actually had a subtle feeling, as if he and the sword were one. This kind of blood connection was very novel. Hearing Li Xiaotian's question, he raised his head and looked at the two people who were staring at him with curiosity. He slightly smiled and said, Don't worry, this is a good thing for me. From now on, The mysterious hidden sword can merge into my body. I will use my body to nourish it, and it will use its sword chi to refine my body. Li Xiaoyan's mouth was so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. He instantly understood, and was so excited that he almost jumped up and cheered. This is great, you and the mysterious hidden sword can become even more powerful. Tang Jing smiled and nodded his head. Mo Xie's thoughts were extremely complicated. He understood the meaning of this change even more than Li Xiaotian. He had been refining for so many years, and actually had a lot of experience. He had already slowly fumbled in front of another important door in refining, and that was Tang Jing's current state. It was equivalent to Tang Jing using actual actions to prove his guess. This could really be realized, and the magical equipment and the person could really reach a state where they could mutually benefit and nourish each other. Tang Jing saw that Mo Xie was like a demon, not smiling and not moving at all. He waved his hand in front of him and called out, Mo Xie, what's wrong with you? Mo Xie came back to his senses, and looked at Tang Jing with a particularly complicated gaze. It could no longer be described as simple envy and jealousy. He was sure that Tang Jing could not merge two divine artifacts into one, because such a thing had never happened before. This kind of pioneering thing would not always succeed, and judging from his experience, the chances of success were very slim. But Tang Jing stubbornly persisted and succeeded in the end, and also confirmed his guess all along. The feeling in his heart could be imagined. Mo Xie looked at Tang Jing's eyes, hesitated for a while, and then forced out 3 words, "You win." Tang Jing laughed involuntarily and said, "This is actually all thanks to you. Without those refining techniques and experiences I obtained from you before, I'm afraid I would not have succeeded." These words made Mo Xie feel even more ashamed of his inferiority. His own experiences did not have much use at all. If Tang Jing really believed in his experience, then he would not have merged the 2 swords. This was because, based on his experience, this was simply impossible. Obviously, Tang Jing did not completely use his experience. It was better to not have books than to believe in books, and this was the reason. Tang Jing had his own judgment and opinions. To read a novel without mistakes, please visit Chapter 1477. Mo Xie took the initiative to admit defeat. Tang Jing calmly accepted it, because this success was indeed commendable. It was the result of his own hard work. Mo Xie stared at the hidden profound sword with shining eyes, asked, "What level is it now?" Tang Jing's finger brushed the sword body, said, "It's more powerful than before, but to what extent, I don't know." Mo Xie really wanted to blurt out that they should give it a try, but he did not have the confidence now. He was no longer Tang Jing's opponent. With the fusion of the 2 swords, Tang Jing's confidence greatly increased. He decided to strike while the iron was hot, and cultivate his own power, so to the 2 of them he said, "You 2 leave first, I will continue to cultivate." Li Xiaotian lightly nodded and left the room. Mo Xie muttered to himself, thinking back to the scene just now, to understand the profoundness within. Tang Jing waved his hand, and once again kept Mo Xie into Sumeru world. Although Mo Xie's strength was not as good as Tang Jing's, but after all, he was still a strong person. If he stayed outside, in case he had other thoughts, then the people in the room would be in danger. He ignored the devastated room and the deep sword marks. All of his attention was focused on himself. He raised the hidden profound sword, carefully thinking back to the man and sword that he created. The sword light in his hand flashed, and he disappeared again, leaving only a sword. The sword light was dazzling, like the scorching sun. Not only could the hidden profound sword merge with his body, when he used the man and sword as one, he could also merge with the hidden profound sword. The hidden profound sword hummed incessantly. The hidden profound sword rushed straight to the wall. Immediately, like cutting a piece of tofu, the hidden profound sword easily pierced through the wall, leaving only a small hole. The hidden profound sword soared into the sky, circling above the capital. At this moment, the hidden profound sword's light had already been completely retracted. The ink-black sword body blended into one with the night. It was impossible to detect. Tang Jing soared above the sky, looking down at the thousands of lights below. Above his head was the vast night sky. The twinkling stars, resonating with the thousands of lights. For the first time in his life, he suddenly had a very different feeling when he looked at the sky at such a close distance. He had stepped on the ground before, so he was most familiar with the feeling of the ground. Now that he had soared into the 9 heavens, the sky seemed to be within reach, just inches away. The image of heaven and earth in his mind became more and more concrete. The man and the sword separated. He stood on the hidden sword and felt the cold wind in the sky. He seemed to have comprehended something. Whoosh! Suddenly, a small copper figurine appeared in his mind, and it began to perform sword moves. Taiji Yin-Yang swordsmanship. Tang Jing immediately recognized that this was the last move of the Taiji Yin-Yang swordsmanship, which meant that he had yet to learn the later moves. When the small bronze figure finished its demonstration, he immediately recognized it. Moreover, he also learned these moves. Now, he had completely learned the first 4 levels of the Taiji dual form sword art, a total of 24 moves. The Taiji dual form swordsmanship had a total of 6 levels and 36 moves. There were still 2 levels that he had yet to learn. This swordsmanship contained the great Tao of heaven and earth. He suddenly learned so many moves because he had a new understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Just now, he had a feeling when he looked at the heaven and earth, so it was naturally stimulated. The heaven is yang, and the earth is yin. Since the Taiji Yin-Yang swordsmanship contains yin and yang and the great Tao of heaven, then yin and yang are in harmony. Only then can the heaven and earth give birth to all things. He muttered to himself, and his eyes glowed with spirit. Heaven and earth unite. Suddenly he roared. The hidden sword of Xian slashed out and landed on the sky. Then he slashed down again and merged with the earth. However, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. It disappeared without a trace, without any ripples. In the next second, everything changed. 2 majestic forces flew out from the sky and the earth. They merged beside Tang Jing, forming a huge yin-yang fish pattern. The yin-yang fish spun non-stop, emitting a terrifying pressure. This was above the 9 heavens, so the ordinary people on the ground did not feel this pressure. However, Tang Jing was standing beside him and felt it personally. He looked cold and said to himself, "Heaven and earth as one. This is the 2nd swordsmanship that I created." This was a swordsmanship that he created by coincidence. It was similar to the man and sword as one, but their power was different. He looked at the yin-yang fish and pointed with the hidden sword. The yin-yang fish disappeared as if it had never appeared. However, the terrifying pressure did not disappear completely. His eyes became very deep. He said, "The great Tao of heaven is indeed extraordinary and mysterious. It actually helped me learn the Taiji dual form swordsmanship and even helped me create new moves." He seemed to understand why Yan Qingyi became so powerful. The mystery of the great Tao of heaven was indeed difficult to be estimated with common sense. He suppressed his surging emotions. He knew that from now on he could not ignore the tomes of heaven. The tomes of heaven recorded the great Tao of heaven. He could only comprehend more of the great Tao of heaven by studying the tomes of heaven. Yan Qingyi obtained the inheritance of the great Tao of heaven, and he had the tomes of heaven. It was not impossible for him to pry into the truth of the great Tao of heaven. When that time came, Yan Qingyi would not be the only one who stood out and might not be a threat to him. He focused his attention on the tomes of heaven in his mind again. After studying it for a while, he did not comprehend much new things. It seemed that he had comprehended too much recently and needed time to make a new breakthrough. I haven't been to Langya Pavilion for a long time. Now that a month has passed, I can go in again. Tang Jing thought to himself. Now, his Dragon God technique had been cultivated to the 9th level, which was the highest level of the Dragon God technique. There was a little 9-clawed golden dragon in his glabella. It seemed that there was no room for improvement. In fact, Tang Jing knew very well that the Dragon God technique was only one of the divine abilities of the dragon race. The dragon race had many other divine abilities, and he would not be satisfied with this. Moreover, the 9th level of the Dragon God technique could only allow him to ascend to the 9th level of Langya Pavilion. There were a total of 18 levels in Langya Pavilion, which meant that there were still 9 levels left. The remaining 9 levels of Langya Pavilion were even higher, which could very well mean that there were more treasures of heaven and earth and more profound techniques. Naturally, he would not be willing to stop here. He still wanted to ascend to the remaining 9 levels, but he could not figure out what the conditions were. He simply sat down on the hidden mystic sword and floated in the sky. The hidden mystic sword had a sword spirit, which could protect him completely. No one could hurt him. He activated the Dragon God technique and communicated with the Dragon Seal. He entered Langya Pavilion, and the majestic Langya Pavilion immediately stood in front of him. He was familiar with the way, and in one breath, he climbed to the 8th level of Langya Pavilion and arrived at the staircase of the 9th level. He lifted his foot and stepped on the stairs. The stairs creaked, but did not send him flying. He walked up the stairs and climbed to the 9th level. A gentle white light filled the 9th level, as if a ball of warm sunlight was immediately projected on Tang Zheng's body. However, his eyes widened. He was not attracted by the light, but by the huge object in front of him. He was deeply shocked. With his experience, ordinary things or objects would not be able to make him react like this. One could imagine how extraordinary this thing in front of him was. Dragon bone. He swallowed his saliva and blurted out. This was indeed a dragon bone, but it was a complete dragon bone. Every detail was not missing, and it still maintained the form of a dragon, emitting a terrifying pressure. Why is there a dragon bone here? What's the use of it? Tang Zheng was puzzled. The previous levels were all magic treasures or techniques, but this level was a dragon bone, so what was the use of it? He really wanted to ask the golden dragon, or he should have asked a few more questions when he met the dragon senior in the inverted Langya Pavilion. Now, the other party had merged with his body with the other dragon souls, so he had no place to ask even if he wanted to. He carefully approached the dragon bone step by step, looking left and right, but he could not find any clues. However, the gentle white light emitted by the dragon bone was very intimate, like a spring breeze. He understood that it was because he cultivated the Dragon God technique, which was equivalent to a member of the dragon race. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably be intimidated by the dragon might contained in the white light. The dragon bone must be useful here. I have to study it carefully. He made up his mind and tentatively stretched out his hand, gently touching the dragon bone. When his fingertips touched the dragon bone moved. Was he seeing things? He thought it was his illusion and blinked hard to confirm that he was not seeing things. He could not help but feel a chill in his heart, not knowing what this change meant. The dragon bone began to move, as if it had come to life and possessed life. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of the joints was crisp and clear, but it was like a heavy hammer hitting his heart, making him feel even more uneasy. Tang Zheng held his breath as he made ample preparations to deal with any danger or unforeseen event that might come. In addition, he found that he could not retract his hand. There seemed to be a powerful suction force on the dragon bone, firmly attracting his hand. Before he could think of a way to deal with it, the dragon bone's huge body rushed over, as if it was going to crush him into pieces. He subconsciously reached out to block, but he found that he had missed. The dragon bone pierced through his arm, and an intense pain spread throughout his body. Ah! He could not help but scream, but there was nothing he could do. He could only watch as the dragon bone pierced through his arm, but no blood flowed out. The dragon bone did not come out of his arm again. Instead, it stayed in his arm. As for the other parts of his body, the dragon bone pierced through his skin and fused with his body. Not long after, the dragon bone disappeared. This was because it had completely merged into Tang Zheng's body. How could such a large dragon bone merge into his small body? This question popped up in his mind, but before he could find the answer, he found that dragon scales were gradually covering his body, and his hands and feet had disappeared, turning into dragon claws. He turned his eyes and realized that this was no longer his body. Instead, he had turned into a dragon that was as large as a colossal creature. Although he could transform into a dragon in the past, it was more under the cover of light, not like a real dragon like this. At this moment, he was really a dragon, not a dragon. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1478. Tang Zheng looked at his own changes in disbelief, and thought to himself, could it be that this was the effect of the dragon bone? This was naturally the effect of the dragon bone. He already had the dragon claw and found the dragon vein in Emperor Qin's tomb. At this moment he had a dragon bone. 81 medium text net dragon claw, dragon vein, and dragon bone. He had all three. He already had the form of a dragon. Now that he had both form and spirit, he was a real dragon. Of course, he was still a human. He was a combination of two races. This was also one of the reasons why the senior dragon chose him back then. Tang Jing shook his head and wagged his tail, as if he was still not used to his dragon form. However, he had figured out the function of this dragon bone. It was practically tailor-made for him. What would the other dragons encounter when they came to the 9th floor? He turned his head to take a look. The dragon bone had disappeared, which meant that it was only for him. The other dragons might not encounter it. He could not figure it out, so he decided not to investigate further. He could not help but look at the stairs leading to the 10th floor. He could not see the situation on the 10th floor clearly, and he did not have the intention to go up and investigate. Each floor of the Langya Pavilion required a corresponding cultivation level to go up. The 9 floors below corresponded to the 9 levels of the Dragon God technique. He did not know what the 9 floors above were related to. He could only ask the Golden Dragon when he went out. The problem now was how to change from his dragon form to his human form. He could not keep this form forever. Boom! Just as he was thinking hard, a loud sound came from outside the Langya Pavilion. He was shocked. What was going on? Boom! Another loud sound rang out, and the Langya Pavilion shook slightly. He also shook his huge body. He knew that something must have happened outside to make the Langya Pavilion shake. This meant that the situation was definitely not simple. I'll go take a look. He followed the stairs like a fish. He shook his head and tail and flew down. His 9 dragon claws did not touch the ground, but his speed was very fast. After a while, he arrived at the 1st floor. In a flash, he saw a person standing outside the door. This person's hand was shining, and he was preparing a big move. Could it be that he was the one who caused the commotion just now? That must be it. Tang Jing paused. The other party didn't seem to have expected to see a dragon. He didn't show any fear, but he stared at Tang Jing with shining eyes, as if he had seen a delicious meal. Haha, I really didn't expect to meet a dragon soul here. The heavens are really helping me. The other party laughed excitedly, as if he didn't put Tang Jing in his eyes at all. When Tang Jing heard the other party's unbridled words, his heart trembled. He suddenly had an ominous premonition. He didn't rush to speak. Instead, he immediately activated the divine ability given to him by the senior of the dragon clan. It's a dragon slayer. Tang Jing immediately recognized the other party's identity because he could sense the aura of a dragon slayer. Dragon slayers could sense the dragon race, but the ancestors of the dragon race had also developed a divine art to sense the dragon slayers, and Tang Jing had learned it. Thus, the moment he cast the spell, he sensed that the other party was a dragon slayer. The dragon slayer had actually appeared in the Langya Pavilion. This was a place that only the dragon clan could reach. Apart from the dragon seal, there was no other way. However, this dragon slayer did it. This meant that the senior of the dragon clan had been most worried about had become a reality. There were so many dragon souls buried here. Once the dragon slayer reached this place, they definitely wouldn't let those dragon souls go. If they absorbed those dragon souls, they would become even more powerful and it wouldn't be easy to deal with them. The dragon race would have even less hope of taking revenge. However, it was unknown whether this dragon slayer was alone or if many people had come to the Langya Pavilion. If he was the only one who knew how to enter the Langya Pavilion, then he definitely couldn't let him leave. If there were other dragon slayers who knew, then the Langya Pavilion would be in great danger. Sooner or later, they would lead a large army to the Langya Pavilion, and those dragon souls buried here wouldn't be able to be hidden anymore. No matter what, he had to first control the other party and find out the details. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, Tang Jing had already thought of everything and made a decision. When the dragon slayer saw Tang Jing, who had transformed into a dragon, he couldn't stop laughing arrogantly. "You stupid dragon, surrender obediently, and I can still leave your corpse intact." Roar! Tang Jing roared, and the dragon's roar was deafening. The dragon slayer frowned and said with a murderous aura, "You reckless thing, then I'll grant you your wish." After saying that, he suddenly took a step forward, and a light flashed in his hand as he attacked Tang Jing. Tang Jing was already fully prepared and was ready to receive the other party's attack. However, he found that the light fiercely hit the entrance of the Langya Pavilion and was blocked by a flickering golden light screen. There was no way for it to reach him. Boom! Another loud sound rang out, and the Langya Pavilion trembled. Tang Jing suddenly realized that the commotion just now was caused by this. The Langya Pavilion was the Dragon Clan's holy land, and only the Dragon Clan could enter. Although the Dragon Slayer had devoured the Dragon Soul, he wasn't part of the Dragon Clan, so he couldn't enter the Langya Pavilion and was blocked by the golden light screen outside the door. Tang Jing didn't want to see the Langya Pavilion suffer any damage. Seeing that the other party was about to launch a second round of attacks, he slashed with his dragon claw and turned into a golden light, rushing out of the door. His huge dragon claw directly slapped at the enemy's head. The Dragon Slayer slid backward and dodged the attack. He opened up a distance between them and said with a playful smile, "Not bad, you have some strength. This is more interesting. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother to kill a dragon with no ability." The Dragon Slayer was arrogant and didn't take Tang Jing seriously at all. Tang Jing thought. The other party was just a wisp of soul, and his soul-searching technique didn't work, so it wasn't that easy to force him to tell the truth. Moreover, if he couldn't win, he would definitely retreat from the Langya Pavilion in time. In this vast world, it was easier said than done to find the other party. Therefore, it was better to show the enemy weakness first, and see if he could get some information from his arrogant appearance. He made up his mind and didn't rush to make a move. Instead, he pretended to be shocked and asked, "You're the Dragon Slayer, how did you get here?" Hearing Tang Jing speak, the Dragon Slayer looked at him condescendingly and didn't rush to make a move. He looked around and said proudly, "This is the Dragon Clan's holy land. It was hidden well in the past, but did you think it could be hidden forever? Ha! Let me tell you, no secret of the Dragon Clan can be kept from us forever." "Nonsense, other than the Dragon Clan, no one can come here," Tang Jing said exasperatedly. The Dragon Slayer spread out his hands and said proudly, "Now that the truth is in front of you, what else do you have to say? Impossible, absolutely impossible. You Dragon Clan are short-sighted. After so many years, you haven't changed at all. Didn't you come here through the Dragon Seal? Let me tell you, as long as I control a Dragon Clan member, then I can come here through his Dragon Seal. Now, do you understand? It was your Dragon Clan that brought me here." The Dragon Slayer was very proud. When Tang Jing heard this, he frowned and asked doubtfully, "You're saying it was our Dragon Clan that brought you here?" "Nonsense, how could the Dragon Clan bring you here? No Dragon Clan member would do this, because they knew that it would be a disaster for the Dragon Clan." Therefore, Tang Jing was half believing and half doubting. The Dragon Slayer obviously saw through Tang Jing's thoughts. Seeing that he doubted his words, the Dragon Slayer would definitely open his eyes, so he started to talk nonstop. The ins and outs of the story were like a vivid picture scroll that slowly unfolded in front of Tang Jing, making him suddenly see the light. It turned out that the Dragon Slayer was able to come here completely by chance. He was chasing a Dragon Clan member, and at the last moment of life and death, the Dragon Clan member used the Dragon Seal to attack and talk, but unexpectedly, an accident happened. The Dragon Slayer was indeed hit, but his soul miraculously came here through the Dragon Seal. After experiencing this scene, the Dragon Slayer immediately realized that there was a way to reach the Langya Pavilion through this method. The Dragon Slayer was not unfamiliar with Langya Pavilion. After all, they had hunted so many Dragon Clan members, it was impossible that they did not know this little secret. However, they had always lamented their inadequacies in the past, because they did not have the Dragon Seal themselves. Now, a new path was opened, and this Dragon Slayer unintentionally created it. Once he went back and told the other Dragon Slayers, this news would spread like wildfire. From then on, They would not be in a hurry to hunt Dragon Clan members and devour the Dragon Soul, but first capture and control the Dragon Clan members, then use their dragon seals. A large number of Dragon Slayers could invade Langya Pavilion. That would be a disaster, a complete nightmare. The expression in Tang Zheng's eyes changed again and again, because he already understood the seriousness of this matter. He had obtained an accurate answer, but this answer made him a little breathless. Looking at Tang Zheng's changing expression, the Dragon Slayer thought that he had scared him and was extremely proud. He swaggered towards him and said arrogantly, "The Dragon Clan will be completely exterminated very soon and will no longer exist, so you will die a step earlier. Even if you die a step later, you will still die. There is no meaning in resisting at all. Obediently surrender, and I will leave your corpse intact and let you die a little more quickly." The expression in Tang Zheng's eyes unknowingly became firm. He raised his head high, exuding an enormous dragon's might, looking down at the Dragon Slayer from above, and said meaningfully, "You keep saying that you want to exterminate the Dragon Clan, but let me tell you, that is a fool's dream. You will not succeed at all. The meaning in your words could not be more obvious. Now that you are the only one who knows the way to enter Langya Pavilion, as long as I kill you, then naturally no one else will know about this way. Don't you think so?" The Dragon Slayer was stunned for a moment, then immediately laughed wildly, almost to the point where he could not straighten his back, because he thought that this was the biggest joke in the world. It was really too funny. This Dragon Clan member was actually threatening him, boasting shamelessly that he would kill him. Chapter 1479. The Dragon Slayer thought that this dragon was extremely stupid and actually dared to speak such arrogant words. 81 Middle Delta. When Webtang Zheng's huge dragon eyes narrowed slightly. Killing intent surged out, and together with the dragon's power, it swept towards the Dragon Slayer like a tornado. The Dragon Slayer snorted angrily. Light shone from his hands, turning into a sky full of brilliant light, attacking Tang Zheng. If Tang Zheng had not left the Langya Pavilion, perhaps he would have to spend a lot of effort to break through the defenses of the Langya Pavilion, but since the other party had recklessly come out, the Dragon Slayer felt that the other party was courting death, and killing him was a piece of cake. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of air being torn apart was loud. The attack arrived in the blink of an eye. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the sky. Even the surrounding air was vibrating violently. Whoosh! The dragon's claws clawed fiercely, and the dragon's tail swept across. Golden light shone brightly as it faced the Dragon Slayer. Boom boom boom. As soon as the attacks of both sides came into contact, it was as if an intense chemical reaction had occurred. Waves of air that could topple mountains and overturn seas flew in all directions. The shock wave was so powerful that much of the surrounding fog was dispersed by this attack. There had never been an intense battle in this space. Every dragon came here with an extremely sincere attitude. None of them dared to act rashly. However, this battle broke the peace and stirred up the fog, causing it to shatter. The two of them fought more and more fiercely, stirring up the world. Moreover, they were not weak and could be said to be evenly matched. The more the Dragon Slayer fought, the more fearful he became. He thought that it would be easy to defeat him, but he did not expect his opponent to be so powerful. It was impossible to determine the winner immediately. Tang Zheng did not use all his strength. He was testing the opponent's strength. Because of the previous experience of the Dragon Slayer, Tang Zheng had some confidence, so he did not panic. Boom boom boom. An intense battle shook the heavens and the earth. As Tang Zheng fought, he moved towards the distance so that he could stay as far away from the Langya Pavilion as possible, so as to avoid affecting the Langya Pavilion. The two of them moved further and further away from Langya Pavilion, deep into the fog. However, the fog was stirred up and the surrounding scenery became clearer. This was a wasteland. There were no other buildings or plants. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he saw a scene. His heart trembled as a strong sense of crisis unexpectedly came over him. The Dragon Slayer also saw the same scene. His eyes widened in curiosity as he asked, "What is this place?" Tang Zheng recalled that he had accidentally fallen from the ground and ended up in the inverted Langya Pavilion. It must be this place. Now that the fog had been dispersed by the two of them, They could see everything clearly. No, we can't let him discover that Langya pavilion. Tang Jing made up his mind and launched a fierce attack. This unusual reaction stunned the Dragon Slayer for a while, but he soon recovered and laughed thoughtfully. There must be some secret place down here, right? That's why you have such a big reaction. The heavens are really helping me. Then all the more I have to go and investigate. The Dragon Slayer left Tang Jing and quickly rushed towards the cliff. There was no way to fly in this space, so after the Dragon Slayer rushed off the cliff, he fell in a straight line. Somersault cloud. Tang Jing roared and a white cloud appeared below him. He couldn't fly with his own strength, but the somersault cloud wasn't restricted. Therefore, after he summoned the somersault cloud, he chased after the Dragon Slayer on the cloud. The Dragon Slayer was in midair. He heard the sound of the wind and watched as Tang Jing quickly closed in. He was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He already knew that there was no way to fly in this place, but he had a way to not fall to his death. However, he didn't expect that the Dragon Clan's ability to ride on the cloud was not restricted. He could fly freely in midair. Comparing the two, his disadvantage was immediately apparent. He was very regretful and knew that he had made a stupid decision. Tang Jing also noticed this and was overjoyed. The Dragon Slayer was really courting death. Wasn't this letting him off easy? Somersault cloud, chase after him. At Tang Jing's command, the somersault cloud whizzed and broke through the air. It caught up with the Dragon Slayer. A fierce light flew out from the Dragon Slayer's hand and headed straight for Tang Jing. It wasn't weak. The somersault cloud had its own consciousness and quickly dodged to the side, avoiding this attack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Dragon Slayer dived into the fog below. Although the fog above had been torn apart by the fierce battle between the two, the fog below was still thick and dense. It was impossible to see anything clearly. Once the Dragon Slayer entered the fog, he disappeared without a trace. Tang Jing cursed. With a sweep of his dragon tail, a strong wind tore through the fog. However, he still couldn't find the Dragon Slayer. He was secretly regretful. He was most familiar with this place, but he didn't plan ahead. It was really a mistake. He also chased after the Dragon Slayer. There was thick fog in all directions. Where could he find the Dragon Slayer? He can't fly. Although he can use some mystiques to change his route and make it difficult for me to find him, he will eventually land on the ground. Why don't I just go down and wait for him? I can find him without searching everywhere. Tang Jing had an idea and came up with a plan. Somersault cloud go. Whoosh! The somersault cloud flew at its fastest speed. After a while, it hit the hard ground with a bang. He somersaulted in the air and fell from the somersault cloud. He lay on the ground quietly. Behind him was the inverted Langya pavilion. Above him was heavy fog. He was like an experienced hunter waiting for his prey to take the bait. The surroundings were dead silent. Tang Jing held his breath and curled up into a ball. He tried his best to shrink his body so that he wouldn't be discovered by the Dragon Slayer. Suddenly, he turned his eyes and looked in a direction. He seemed to feel a weak fluctuation in the air coming from that direction. This fog could hide one's tracks. However, when one was in it, especially when one was moving, the fog would fluctuate a little. This fluctuation was very slight and couldn't escape Tang Jing's eyes. However, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. He didn't move at all, so it wouldn't be easy for the Dragon Slayer to discover him. As expected, the weak fluctuation in the fog was heading in his direction. The better he hid himself, the better he could. Suddenly he leaped into the air and swept the ground with his dragon tail to support his body. Then he pounced in the direction of the Dragon Slayer with his dragon claws. There was a cry of surprise in the fog. Clearly, the Dragon Slayer was shocked by this sudden attack. The dragon claws scratched the Dragon Slayer, making a piercing sound. Tang Jing was overjoyed. Waiting for the Dragon Slayer was indeed useful. He actually hit the Dragon Slayer. This wasn't a simple attack. The Dragon Slayer definitely wouldn't be able to take it. A painful groan sounded in the fog. Then, a ray of light flew out from the fog. However, it was swept away by the dragon tail and disappeared completely. This attack stirred up the fog, allowing the two of them to see each other. The Dragon Slayer was in a sorry state. Although he was hit, there was no blood. After all, he was only a soul. Moreover, this was Langya Pavilion. Their respective treasures couldn't be brought here. Thus, the two of them were completely relying on their own strength. Whoever's soul was stronger would naturally be more powerful. The Ksitagarbha Sutra was a supreme technique for cultivating the soul. Tang Jing recited the Ksitagarbha Sutra day and night. His soul was tempered thousands of times, and was not weaker than the Dragon Slayer. Thus, after this attack, the Dragon Slayer's taste could be imagined. The Dragon Slayer retreated in panic, trying his best to distance himself from Tang Jing. However, Tang Jing definitely wouldn't make the same mistake twice. He wouldn't watch as the Dragon Slayer disappeared in front of his eyes. He followed like a shadow, attacking with his dragon tail and dragon claws. "What is your status in the dragon tribe? Why are you so powerful?" The Dragon Slayer asked anxiously. Tang Jing didn't want to expose his identity. He sneered and said, "Humph, if you want to know my identity, you'll have to defeat me first." Hearing these disdainful words, the Dragon Slayer was about to go crazy. He thought that he had discovered the Dragon Tribe's secret after coming to Langya Pavilion, but he didn't expect to encounter this life and death challenge. The battle between the two of them became intense again. It was even a little tragic. The Dragon Slayer's body was covered in wounds. Although there was no blood, he was still in a very sorry state. The Dragon Slayer retreated as he fought. Unknowingly, he actually arrived in front of the inverted Langya Pavilion. His gaze turned and he saw this building. He was immediately attracted. He wasn't attracted by the building, but by the things inside. Dragon souls, so many dragon souls. The Dragon Slayer cheered in surprise, his eyes shining. It was really too unexpected. The Dragon Slayer was born with a keen sense of dragon souls, so even though there was some distance between them, it couldn't stop him from sensing all of this. "Why are there so many dragon souls here?" he asked subconsciously. Tang Jing was shocked. He didn't expect the other party to sense the existence of dragon souls from a distance. But on second thought, it wasn't strange. The Dragon Slayer wanted dragon souls wholeheartedly, so it wasn't strange for him to have a certain sense of dragon souls. It was just that he was a little unhappy to know that there were so many dragon souls. So what if you know there are dragon souls? You can only watch and never think of touching a dragon soul again. Tang Jing said coldly. He was very clear about the Dragon Slayer's desire for dragon souls, but he despised it. The Dragon Slayer licked his lips as if he had seen the most delicious food. He said with a smile, "I finally understand. Back then, when we broke into the Dragon Tribe's dragon tomb, we didn't find many dragon souls. Many dragon souls in the Steel Forest disappeared. It turns out that the Dragon Tribe hid them here. It's really a good place. If I didn't come here by chance, I'm afraid I would have to keep hiding." After pausing for a moment, the Dragon Slayer laughed wildly. This is the Dragon Tribe's biggest secret, dragon souls. Once I absorb so many dragon souls, I will become the most powerful Dragon Slayer. Everyone will have to listen to my orders." The Dragon Slayer's expression became crazy, looking a little sinister. He glared fiercely at Tang Jing and said, "You are a living dragon soul. It's not so easy for me to deal with you. But these dead dragon souls, they don't have your ability. It's easy for me to absorb them. Wait until I absorb these dragon souls, we'll see who's stronger, you or me." Before his voice fell, the Dragon Slayer began to use his divine ability. There was immediately movement in the inverted Langya Pavilion. Chapter 1480. The commotion in the inverted Langya Pavilion was quite big, and it immediately attracted Tang Jing's attention. 81 ohms Chinese network, he cursed inwardly. The Dragon Slayer must be using his magical powers to try and absorb the dragon's soul in the Langya Pavilion. At such a distance, the dragon's soul couldn't escape from him. It was clear that the Dragon Slayer had a unique advantage in this aspect. How could Tang Jing let him have his way? Moreover, once he absorbed the dragon's soul, the Dragon Slayer would definitely become more powerful. Then, Tang Jing wouldn't have an easy time. He made a prompt decision and pounced toward the Dragon Slayer. The Dragon Slayer was casting spells, so his reaction speed was greatly reduced. Although he hurriedly dodged, he still couldn't escape from Tang Zheng's attack. Bang! With a muffled sound, the dragon tail swept the Dragon Slayer's back. He staggered and fell to the ground. At this moment, a dragon's soul flew out from the door and directly toward the Dragon Slayer. The Dragon Slayer was overjoyed and laughed wildly. As long as he absorbed this dragon soul, he would immediately recover and then be able to fight against Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng never expected the Dragon Slayer to cast spells so quickly. There was no time to block it. However, he couldn't just watch as the dragon soul was absorbed by the Dragon Slayer. He subconsciously stood in between the Dragon Slayer and the dragon soul. The dragon soul didn't turn at all and pounced toward Tang Zheng. The dragon soul disappeared into Tang Zheng's body, and his whole body immediately emitted an even more dazzling golden light. Tang Zheng felt that his body had been hit, but he didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, his whole body was filled with energy that spread to every corner of his body. The energy he had expended in the fierce battle just now was immediately replenished. He became energetic again and could still fight for 300 rounds. The Dragon Slayer looked at this scene in disbelief. The dragon soul actually disappeared into Tang Zheng's body. He blurted out, "How could this be? Where's the dragon soul? Where's my dragon soul?" However, Tang Zheng already understood the reason. By coincidence, the dragon soul was absorbed by him. He didn't think about absorbing the dragon soul at all, but the dragon soul crashed into his body and was naturally absorbed by him. This was a complete accident. However, the Dragon Slayer didn't think so. He still shouted in horror, "You are a dragon, how can you absorb the dragon soul?" The dragon soul was the ancestor of the dragon clan. Everyone in the dragon clan respected the dragon soul very much. How could they disrespectfully absorb the dragon soul? The Dragon Slayer knew this very well, which was why he was so incredulous when he saw Tang Zheng absorb the dragon soul. Tang Zheng was a member of the dragon clan who had stumbled upon the path of cultivation, so he did not follow those rules. Moreover, that dragon clan senior had taken the initiative to send the dragon soul into his body. He looked at the Dragon Slayer in high spirits and said, "Why can't I absorb the dragon soul? Are you from the dragon race?" Tang Zheng rolled his eyes at him, thinking to himself that I am not a real dragon clan member. The Dragon Slayer suddenly felt that the situation was extremely thorny. The situation was far more severe than he had imagined. This was a dragon that did not play by the rules. "Dragon Slayer, with me here, you can forget about absorbing any of the dragon souls here." Tang Zheng stood in front of the Dragon Slayer and said resolutely. The Dragon Slayer's heart dimmed. He understood that Tang Zheng was not scaring him. Since the other party had absorbed a dragon soul, then he could absorb more dragon souls. Tang Zheng's aura was like a rainbow, far surpassing him. What could he use to compete with him? At this moment, the Dragon Slayer wanted to escape. This place had already become a dangerous place. Every minute he stayed was another minute of danger. However, it was his first time coming to the Langya Pavilion. He didn't know how to leave at all. He didn't even have time to think about this problem. If he left here, then he could tell this news to his companions. This place would definitely not be safe. They would madly attack this place. Looking at his wandering eyes, Tang Zheng guessed that he was definitely planning something bad. He had to cut the Gordian knot. He roared, and the dragon's roar shook the surroundings. Trespassing into the Langya Pavilion, die, whoosh. He turned into a ray of golden light. The Dragon Slayer hurriedly retreated, but there was nowhere to run in this flat land. The fog was also scattered, and there was no place to hide. Tang Zheng rushed in and attacked directly in front of him. With a sweep of the dragon's tail, the dragon's claws fell. The 9 dragon claws intertwined to form a large golden net, covering him from head to toe. "Ah!" the Dragon Slayer screamed. He had no way to resist at all. First, he was swept by the dragon's tail, then the 9 dragon claws fell on his body. Immediately, the Dragon Slayer couldn't move. He was completely imprisoned. Even if he used all his strength to try and break free from the dragon claws, it was futile. The golden light emitted by the dragon claws intertwined like a golden shackle, firmly locking him down. "Let me go!" The dragon slayer roared hysterically. He raised his head, his eyes full of ruthlessness. Tang Zheng looked down at him from above and said, "Do you think I will let you go? Who knows how many dragons have died in your hands? Today I will take revenge for them." The dragon race is the natural prey of us dragon slayers. So what if I kill you? The dragon slayer retorted. The dragon race is the natural prey? Tang Zheng clenched his teeth, almost grinding them to pieces. His heart was filled with hatred, and his eyes seemed like they were about to burst into flames. "Then from now on, you dragon slayers are my prey. I will hunt down all the dragon slayers in the world and make you disappear from this world," Tang Jing said fiercely. "Haha, arrogant, laughable. The small dragon race, if we really face each other, you are not my opponent at all. How would you have the chance to speak such arrogant words?" The dragon slayer disdainfully said. "You want me to let you go and give you a chance to face each other? Dream on. How could you possibly hide such thoughts from me? You are dead, you won't have the chance. What a pity, you won't have the chance to see me kill you dragon slayers one by one." The dragon slayer stared straight at Tang Jing. After thinking it over, he realized that the other party was not just trying to win a battle of words, but really had such intentions. The shock in his heart could be imagined. For so many years, the dragon slayer had been hunting the dragon race. How could the dragon race do the opposite and change the roles of both sides? No, it was definitely impossible. Tang Jing did not want to pay attention to his thoughts, but he also did not want to simply kill him. He had an idea and decided to use this method to punish him. "Dragon Slayer, don't you like to absorb dragon souls? Then have you ever thought that one day your soul would be sucked away by someone?" Tang Jing asked with an evil smile. The dragon slayer was stunned. He did not understand what Tang Jing meant, but as smart as he was, he finally guessed the meaning and his expression changed. He asked in fear, "What are you going to do?" "Of course I am going to absorb your soul." After saying this, small black holes immediately appeared on Tang Zheng's dragon claws. A small black hole appeared on each of the 9 dragon claws, and the 9 small black holes pressed against the dragon slayer's body. Chapter 1481. Sky-Swallowing Technique. One of the moves, the dragon slayer's soul could no longer resist and quickly flowed into the 9 dragon claws. The dragon slayer widened his eyes in fear and roared hysterically, "What kind of divine ability is this? What are you doing?" Tang Jing smiled faintly and said, "Have you heard of the sky-swallowing technique? Your soul will be completely absorbed by me." Sky-swallowing technique? The dragon slayer said this unfamiliar name with difficulty. Just by hearing the name, one could feel that this divine ability was extraordinary. "If you kill me, the other dragon slayers will definitely not let you go." The dragon slayer made a final struggle. Tang Jing rolled his eyes and said, "If I kill you, only heaven and earth, you and I will know. Who else will know? You want to take revenge on me? Dream on. We will kill all the dragons. There will be a day when we find you," the dragon slayer said sinisterly. Tang Zheng's heart trembled and his anger rose. "If I don't kill you, won't you kill the other dragons? You won't let the dragons off either. So, go to hell." Tang Zheng activated the sky-swallowing technique, and its power increased greatly. The 9 black holes seemed to be connected into one, and after the whistling sound of breaking through the air, the world returned to calm. The dragon slayer's soul dissipated, and all his soul was sucked into the black holes and merged into the heaven realm. With a thought, Tang Jing entered the heaven realm. He was the creator of the heaven realm and knew the movements of the heaven realm like the back of his hand. When the dragon slayer's soul dissipated, he immediately discovered the changes in the heaven realm. The energy contained in the dragon slayer's soul was extremely powerful. After all, he had absorbed a dragon soul before. Strands of light floated down from the sky and landed on the ground. Bang! With a weak sound, the soil on the ground loosened, as if something had broken out of the ground. Tang Zheng was shocked. What could this be? Could it be another stalk of grass? His heart was filled with anticipation. The last time he created those grass, it was his consciousness that took the initiative. This time, it was different. It was the spontaneous action of these energy. What kind of changes would there be? Even he, the creator, couldn't figure it out. But there was no doubt that this was a good change. The soil loosened again, and a patch of green grew out of the soil. Green sprout. Tang Jing recognized it at a glance, but he didn't know what it was. In the past, I could see through any changes in the heaven realm at a glance, but this green sprout is exceptionally mysterious. For a moment, I actually can't see through it. Strange. But the more strange and mysterious it was, the more complicated it was. The green bud grew bigger and bigger until it became a small sapling. Its leaves fluttered in the wind, full of green. A sapling. Tang Jing looked at this scene curiously, but he immediately discovered other abnormalities. There were also changes under the soil, and a scene that was extremely incompatible with this small sapling appeared. Tang Jing's mood immediately became complicated, as if he had seen something inconceivable. Although the sapling was small, its roots were extremely developed. They had already covered the ground and interweaved into a large net. This scene gave him a feeling of déjà vu. With a flash of inspiration, he already understood what this was. He already remembered where he had seen it before. It was in the desert in the northwest. Back then, he fell into an unfathomable hole under the dragon group's base, and the bottom was full of such intertwined tree roots. Tree of life? Is this the tree of life? For a moment he couldn't digest this news. It was really too shocking. The sapling was still growing, and it didn't take long for it to grow to the height of a person. Its branches and leaves were lush, and it was indeed no different from the tree of life, except that it was a little smaller. At this time, Tang Jing could already be sure that this was the tree of life. The heaven realm was a world, but with the tree of life so early, didn't it mean that this was already a great world? At the thought of this, he became very excited. A great world. That was something that many people dreamed of. The ghost realm and the human world both wanted to become a great world. The human world had a hard time reviving the tree of life, and gradually promoted to a great world. It's just that the tree of life is still so small, and can't be compared with the tree of life in the human world. If I want the heaven realm to be stable at the level of a great world, I'm afraid I'll have to let the tree of life grow strong. From the fact that the tree of life sprouted, it could be seen that to let the tree of life grow, it also needed energy, and the energy of a dragon slayer was enough to let the tree of life sprout. Then wouldn't more dragon slayers make it grow into a towering tree? At this moment, he couldn't wait to hunt more dragon slayers. Not only could he avenge the dragon clan, but he could also let the tree of life grow, killing two birds with one stone. The tree of life swayed non-stop, and the leaves rustled. Waves of mysterious power surged and drifted on the surrounding land. Another burst of earth-breaking sounds was heard, and a large patch of grass broke out of the ground. This was the same scene as when the tree of life in the human world was rejuvenated. Many plants grew around the tree of life, and the desert became an oasis. It was a miracle. A moment later, the area with a radius of more than 10 meters turned into grass, and traces of power rippled out. Tang Jing actually felt a trace of dragon's might from it. The shape of these grass was also particularly different, and there was actually a flickering golden light on the tip of the grass. Tang Jing was deep in thought. These golden lights were the energy of the dragon clan, because the dragon slayers had absorbed too many dragon souls, and the energy of the dragon clan was also mixed in. These are no longer ordinary grass, but spirit herbs. Let's call them dragon spirit herbs. Tang Jing simply gave them a name. If they were refined into elixirs with dragon spirit herbs, the effects would definitely be very good. However, there were too few dragon spirit herbs now, and Tang Jing didn't dare to waste them. He withdrew his consciousness and returned to the Langya Pavilion. He glanced at the inverted Langya Pavilion, then looked at his own huge body, and thought to himself, how am I going to return to my human form? Before he could think of a solution, the scene in front of him changed. He had already retreated from the dragon seal and returned to the 9 heavens. The biting cold wind blew on his body, and he was sitting cross-legged on the hidden mystic sword. He took a deep breath and looked at the sky. He had gained a lot this time, and even the tree of life had appeared. However, he still had a worry in his heart. Although this dragon slayer had arrived at the Langya Pavilion by chance, there might be other dragon slayers in the future who would have such a coincidence. This didn't rule out the possibility that a large group of dragon slayers would arrive at the Langya Pavilion. Then, how would he deal with them? Wouldn't those dragon souls be in danger? Although the magical power imparted to him by the seniors of the dragon clan allowed him to communicate with the Langya Pavilion, and he would definitely discover the dragon slayers as soon as they arrived at the Langya Pavilion, it was still very difficult to deal with them. Previously, when I was on the 9th level of the Langya Pavilion, my mind was focused on the dragon bones, and I didn't sense the arrival of the dragon slayers in time. This was a huge mistake, and I have to be vigilant at all times in the future. If there are more dragon slayers arriving at the Langya Pavilion, I have to be the first to know. He secretly warned himself, and his back unknowingly broke out in cold sweat. This time, he was extremely lucky. If he didn't go to the 9th level of the Langya Pavilion, his senses would definitely be delayed, and he would let the dragon slayers bring the news back. This would definitely be a disaster for the dragon clan. I'm not going to wash up, I'll look for the golden dragon to discuss countermeasures. With a whoosh, he flew back home on his sword. The edges of the sky were starting to turn white. A new day had arrived. In another world, the dragon slayers discovered that another one of their companions had lost their senses. This was the first time such a situation had happened recently. In the past, when they hunted down the dragon clan, they would also encounter situations where they were killed instead, but that was a long time ago. Almost all the experts of the dragon clan had been hunted down by the dragon slayers, and in the recent 100 years, there had been no more deaths of dragon slayers. Therefore, when they suddenly lost a dragon slayer, they wanted to find out the truth immediately and didn't hesitate to travel through many dimensions. However, the unexpected happened. Now that another dragon slayer had died, one could imagine the shock this caused to them. They hadn't found out the truth yet, and they had lost another companion. This was a huge provocation to them. Each of the dragon slayers was extremely angry, and they kept roaring and roaring. They swore that they would definitely find the murderer and cut him into pieces. A rumor quietly spread among the dragon slayers. A rare genius had definitely appeared in the dragon clan, and that was why he could kill 2 dragon slayers consecutively in such a short time. All the dragon slayers stopped their hunting and focused all their attention on this so-called genius. They had to find him in the shortest time possible. Not long after, the dragon slayers found the corpse of the second companion, and there was another dragon clan corpse next to it. The scene showed that they had gone through a desperate battle. However, they could confirm that the dragon clan was killed by the dragon slayers in the end, but why did the dragon slayers also die? After studying the dragon slayers' corpses, they discovered something strange. The dragon slayers' souls were gone, as if they had been sucked away by someone. The dragon slayers were good at absorbing dragon souls, so they were especially sensitive to absorbing other people's souls, so it was naturally not difficult for them to discover this. It was precisely this point that caused quite a commotion among the dragon slayers. In the past, it was always them who absorbed dragon souls. When did their souls get sucked away by the dragon clan? Their anger was like a volcanic eruption and was about to devour everything. Of course, they also didn't let go of that dragon clan's corpse, hoping that they could find some clues from it and find that hateful murderer who killed their companion. They didn't find any clues about the murderer, but they discovered another point. The dragon seal of this dragon clan's corpse was broken. Every dragon seal had an extremely powerful seal. Even if the dragon slayers knew that there were many secrets hidden in the dragon seal, they still couldn't break the seal. But this dragon seal was broken. What did this mean? That indestructible dragon seal wasn't as indestructible as they thought, so it turned out that it could really be broken. Their companion must have discovered this secret before he died, and that was why he was killed. This discovery was too big, and it immediately attracted all the dragon slayers. They couldn't wait to find out what kind of method could break the dragon seal. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1482. Tang Jing did not know that the Dragon Clan had already found clues and was searching for the source. Danger was quietly approaching. 81 Chinese website The Golden Dragon stood respectfully in front of Tang Jing. Although it was tall, it was like a docile little animal in front of Tang Jing. Even without all kinds of restrictions, the Golden Dragon had already submitted to Tang Jing wholeheartedly. After hearing all kinds of secrets in the Langya Pavilion, the Golden Dragon widened its eyes in horror. It rolled its eyes and exclaimed after a while, "Master, are you saying that the secret of the Langya Pavilion will be exposed?" Tang Jing said non-committally, "It's under control for the time being, but there's no guarantee that it will be discovered by the Dragon Slayers in the future. After all, if there's a first time, there will be a second time." The Golden Dragon was silent. It had to admit this. With the cunning of the Dragon Slayers, they would definitely think of a way. Then what should we do? The Golden Dragon asked in a panic. This was the last habitat of the Dragon Clan to avoid disputes. No one would want him to be tainted with the smell of gunpowder. Tang Jing was also silent. He really did not have a way that he was 100% sure of. He thought that he could not be too passive and wait for the Dragon Slayers to come. It seemed that he should have more information about the Dragon Slayers. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle. Golden Dragon, I have an idea. Listen to it and give me some advice. See if it's feasible. Tang Jing changed the topic and asked for help from the Golden Dragon. The Golden Dragon widened its eyes and looked at him at a loss. It did not know what he was thinking and why he needed to give his advice. Seeing that the Golden Dragon did not object, Tang Jing said to himself, "We can't just sit and wait for death. We must think of a way to take the initiative and hunt down the Dragon Slayers." Hunt down the Dragon Slayers? The Golden Dragon asked in horror as if it had heard a fantasy story. Tang Jing frowned slightly and asked, "Why, are you afraid?" "Of course I'm not afraid." The Golden Dragon immediately raised its head and showed a proud expression, but its tone was still hesitant. It's not that the Dragon Clan didn't think of this before, but it was proven to have failed in the end. Failure can only represent the past. It can't represent failure forever, Tang Jing said firmly. The Golden Dragon stared at Tang Jing with a burning gaze, as if trying to figure out his attitude. Tang Jing's expression did not change, and they looked at each other. Finally, the Golden Dragon seemed to have been given a wake-up call, and it was suddenly enlightened. It said resolutely, "All right, our Dragon Clan has been sullen for so many years, and we can't keep sullen forever. Hunting a Dragon Slayer, I'll do it. That's right. Let's do something big." The Golden Dragon's attitude made Tang Jing nod his head in satisfaction. He said with relief, "This is the true pride of the Dragon Clan. What is there to be afraid of? We can definitely fight them." The Golden Dragon also nodded heavily, greatly encouraged. "Then how can we find the Dragon Slayer? Do you have any ideas?" Tang Jing asked again. There were too many great worlds and small worlds. Tang Jing did not know where the Dragon Slayer was, nor did he know where to start. The Golden Dragon said in a deep voice, "This is not the most difficult problem. Although I don't know where the Dragon Slayer's lair is, there must be a Dragon Slayer in a place where many Dragon Clan live. Especially if the Dragon Clan reveals their whereabouts, the Dragon Slayer will definitely not miss it." "What, you want to take the initiative to expose yourself and attract the Dragon Slayer?" Tang Jing was shocked. He did not expect such a method. "Just me, a Dragon Clan member, may not be that attractive to the Dragon Slayer. We must find more Dragon Clan members, and then we can attract the Dragon Slayer." "More Dragon Clan?" Tang Jing was stunned, and asked hesitantly, "Then where are we going to find so many Dragon Clan members?" "You also know very well that the Dragon Clan can actually sense each other. Otherwise, as long as we find a Dragon Clan gathering place, it won't be difficult to attract the Dragon Slayer." Tang Jing was overjoyed. This was indeed a method. It was absolutely risky to put oneself in a desperate situation. The problem is that our strength is not as good as that of the Dragon Slayer. Even if we attract the Dragon Slayer, how are we going to deal with them? Don't be afraid that before we can kill them, we will be killed by them instead. The Golden Dragon pointed out the problem that it was most worried about. This was also the problem that Tang Jing was most concerned about. The overall strength of the Dragon Slayer was definitely stronger than that of the Dragon Clan. How to successfully counterattack was the key to the problem. Is the Dragon Clan's cultivation method really inferior to that of the Dragon Slayer? Tang Jing thought hard and asked unwillingly. Of course not. The Dragon Clan has many secret methods, but they were all destroyed back then. Many seniors were also killed, which led to problems in the inheritance. That's why their strength is declining with each generation. At this point, the Golden Dragon felt ashamed. This was indeed the current situation of the Dragon Clan. This was the key to the Dragon Clan being hunted by the Dragon Slayer. Tang Jing immediately grasped this key point and asked curiously, how could these secret methods be destroyed? Those seniors of the Dragon Clan were so powerful, how could they have been killed? The Golden Dragon stammered. For a moment, it was actually unable to answer. Tang Jing frowned and asked, now that things have come to this, do you still have anything to hide from me? No, that's not it. The Golden Dragon hurriedly denied. This is a part of the history of the Dragon Clan. It's extremely mysterious and very few people know about it. Even I don't know about it. As for who in the Dragon Clan knows, perhaps the Dragon King of the Dragon Clan knows. Then where is the Dragon King? I don't know either. The Golden Dragon shook its head. Tang Jing was helpless when he heard that he didn't know anything. He rolled his eyes and changed the question. Then you should know what's going on with the top 9 floors of the Langya Pavilion, right? I'm already at the 9th level of the Dragon God technique and have stepped onto the 9th floor of the Langya Pavilion. What about the remaining 9 floors? The Golden Dragon's expression became even uglier as he stammered. Actually, I don't know what's up there either, because ever since those secret techniques were lost, no one has ever gone up to the top 9 floors. Perhaps the Dragon King will know the answer. The Dragon King again. Tang Jing said snappily, why does he have to be the only one who can answer this question? Because this is related to the secret history of the Dragon Clan. Naturally, no one from the Dragon Clan knows about it, so if you want to know the answer, you can only go find the Dragon King. But you don't know where the Dragon King is either. After we find the other places where the Dragon Clan lives, we will eventually find the Dragon King. The Dragon King is the leader of our Dragon Clan, so only he can answer all the secrets of the Dragon Clan. Tang Jing took a deep breath, suppressed the helplessness in his heart, and said, then your current mission is to find a place where the Dragon Clan lives, and we will go find the Dragon King. This mission was urgent and had to be done as soon as possible. The Golden Dragon also understood the importance of this problem and nodded deeply, indicating that he understood. The other Dragon Clan settlements were definitely in other worlds. When the time came, they would have to travel through space. Tang Jing already had a certain level of understanding of the spatial laws and could freely travel through space, which came in handy. Of course, before this, Tang Jing and Xiao Bai had already agreed to travel to the sky beyond heaven to investigate the situation there. Chapter 1483. At the entrance of the Yan family in Beijing, Tang Jing and the Empyrean Fairy arrived together. Tang Jing and the Golden Dragon came to a rough conclusion. The Golden Dragon went to find a way to find the Dragon Clan's residence, while Tang Jing came to pay a visit to Yan Qingyi. After the great battle in the capital, Yan Qingyi returned to the Yan family and did not leave. Regarding this point, Yan Padian took the initiative to inform Tang Jing. From this point, it seemed that the Yan family still remembered their old friendship. Yan Padian and his 3 sons and grandsons were already waiting at the entrance. When they saw the 2 of them, their expressions became slightly unnatural, but they instantly returned to normal. Young Master Tang, if you have anything to tell me, why do you have to personally make this trip? Yan Padian greeted him familiarly, without the slightest hint of strangeness. Tang Jing looked deeply at the other party and said, Elder Yan, I have come to disturb you this time because of your daughter. The corner of Yan Potion's mouth twitched a few times, thinking that what should have come had come. He had already guessed the purpose of Tang Jing's visit, and now it had been confirmed. The group of people arrived at the hall, served tea, and dismissed their subordinates. There were only 5 people left, and they sat facing each other, looking at each other without saying a word. The atmosphere was slightly awkward. Empyrean Fairy could not hold it in. After all, this matter concerned her father, so she said bluntly, "Please let Yen Qingyi out. My father was sealed by her. No matter how dangerous it is, she has to give me an explanation." Regarding this matter, Empyrean Fairy had always been suppressing a wave of anger in her heart. Even though her father had temporarily escaped the sea of bitterness, this ball of flame had not been extinguished. Yen Patin knew how powerful Empyrean Fairy was. He looked at her resentfully and said hesitantly, "Don't be impatient. If there's anything, we can discuss it properly. As for Qingyi, what's there that you can't say? Why are you hiding it?" The Empyrean maiden pressed on. "Qingyi is in closed-door cultivation and does not see outsiders." Yen Qishan spoke first. "Seclusion?" Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy looked at each other and saw the complicated look in each other's eyes. Yen Qingyi's closed-door cultivation meant that she had made some new gains and was at the critical moment of her breakthrough. An invisible pressure immediately weighed down on the two of them. If Yen Qingyi made a breakthrough in her cultivation, they would be even more vulnerable. Tang Zheng made a prompt decision, looked at Yen Patian with a burning gaze, and said with an irrefutable tone, "Elder Yen, we still want to see her, because there are many questions that require her to personally answer. Furthermore, the inner demons are still in her body. I understand the inner demons very well. They are definitely not good people. If anything happens to her, it will be too late to regret it." "What? The inner demons are in her body?" Yen Patian was shocked by this sudden news. He did not know the details of the battle in the capital, so he naturally did not know that his daughter still had the soul of the inner demons hidden in her body. "Yes, the inner demons are even more cunning and powerful than the rumors say. Aren't you afraid that she will suffer a loss?" Tang Zheng's words accurately hit Yen Potion's weak spot, and his expression immediately changed. Yen Qishan and Yen Liuyan's expressions changed at the same time as they looked at Yen Patian anxiously. Yen Patian fell into silence, obviously weighing the pros and cons. Yen Qishan could not help but advise, "Father, this is a matter of great importance. This is related to Qingyi's safety. You can't be careless." No one doubted Tang Zheng's words. They still had this bit of trust. After all, they had worked together for a long time, and they believed that Tang Zheng would not lie to them. Yen Luyun also couldn't wait to say, "That's right, grandfather, this is related to Aunt's safety." "Inner demons?" "Inner demons are not ordinary people." Yen Potion's eyes gradually became resolute. He looked deeply at Tang Zheng and said, "All right, young Master Tang, then I will bring you to see her. I hope that young Master Tang can help my daughter get out of this crisis." Tang Zheng said non-committally, "If you need me, I will naturally not decline." The three people from the Yen family immediately brought the two of them to the deepest part of the courtyard. There were no more servants here, and finally, after passing through a tightly sealed arch, they arrived at a small courtyard. Although it was winter, the flowers were blooming like brocades, as if it was spring. Even the temperature was much warmer. Tang Zheng glanced at Empyrean Fairy, and the two of them could not hide the shock in their hearts. Ever since they entered this courtyard, it was as if they had entered another world. This was definitely not the weather that the capital should have. Yen Patian saw through the doubts of the two and took the initiative to explain, "The two of you must have seen through the clues. All of these changes happened after Qingyi returned, and I am not sure what the exact reason is." Tang Jing nodded his head heavily. Other than Yen Qingyi, it was almost impossible for anyone else to achieve this kind of change. Without a doubt, this was once again the work of the heavenly Tao. The few of them crossed the small bridge and arrived in front of a small building. At the same time, they felt a powerful energy enveloping this small building, emitting an aura that prevented strangers from entering. Tang Zheng's head sank, and he focused all of his attention. "I'm in seclusion. Forgive me for not receiving guests. You can go back." A voice floated out from the small building, blocking their footsteps. Although they hadn't met yet, their whereabouts had already been completely seen by Yen Qingyi. No one found it strange at all. The three people from the Yen clan had seen this miraculous action before. Tang Zheng and the Nine Heavens Maiden were well aware of the extraordinariness of the heavenly Tao. Not to mention this divine ability, even more powerful divine abilities would not surprise the two of them. Yan Qingyi, the inner demons are in your body. If you don't think of a way to deal with them, there will be endless trouble in the future. Tang Zheng went straight to the point. A mere inner demons, what's there to be afraid of? I have my own way. Yan Qingyi vowed solemnly, as if he did not put the inner demons in his eyes at all. Tang Zheng frowned, thinking to himself, what a big tone. Even I wasn't this arrogant back then. I'm afraid that Yan Qingyi didn't truly understand the strength of a heart demon. After all, Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor couldn't kill him even when they worked together. Even if Yan Qingyi had the heavenly Tao inheritance, could he be more powerful than Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor? If the inner demons were to escape, Tang Zheng and the inner demons would have completely fallen out. Then Tang Zheng would be facing a huge threat. He naturally would not ignore such a threat. Tang Zheng had not thought of persuading him, but Yen Patin could no longer hold it in and said earnestly, Qingyi, listen to father, it's not too late for us to settle the problem of the inner demons first before going into seclusion. It's like a ticking time bomb, if it explodes one day, it'll be too late to regret it. Yan Qingyi remained unmoved and continued to speak coldly, you don't need to worry about my matters, no matter how much saliva you waste, it's all in vain, I've already made up my mind. Yan Qingyi did not give them any face, causing them to be in a mess. However, the Empyrean fairy did not have the time to argue with her. She took a step forward and rushed towards the small building, blurting out, Yan Qingyi, come out. I haven't finished settling the score with you regarding my father. Empyrean fairy, I was thinking that the Emperor of Heaven was also comprehending the heavenly Tao, so I did not kill him. If you continue to pester me, then don't blame me for being merciless. Yan Qingyi spoke bluntly, and said without any trace of politeness. Don't lift yourself up so high. Be careful not to fall down and shatter your bones. You really know how to flatter yourself. My father is the dignified Emperor of Heaven, and he needs these things from you. The Empyrean fairy retorted coldly. Moreover, the heavenly Tao is a supreme divine ability that has been passed down for generations in my Fu clan. What do your things count for? Yan Qingyi laughed out loud and said with disdain, Empyrean fairy, you are the one who knows how to flatter yourself. Not only that, you are also flattering the Fu clan. What? You dare to spout such nonsense and splash dirty water on my Fu clan? The Empyrean fairy seemed to have been stepped on, and was about to jump up in anger. This had indeed touched the bottom line of the Empyrean fairy. She would not be so angry even if she was attacked by a person. Yan Qingyi was talking about the Fu clan, and this was something that she absolutely could not tolerate. Yen Padian and the others were shocked, their hearts were about to jump out of their throats. They secretly complained that Yan Qingyi did not know what to say, and actually said such words. This could completely bring about a huge disaster to the Yen family. After all, it was definitely not a good thing to have such a powerful enemy like the Empyrean fairy. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly shrank. He was very clear that Yan Qingyi was not a person who spoke without thinking. Her words definitely had a deep meaning. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to express his stance, guessing that Yan Qingyi definitely had more to say. Yan Qingyi, on the other hand, did not have the slightest psychological burden. The Empyrean fairy's reaction was within her expectations, but even so, she would still say that. Yan Qingyi, get out here. I will let you know the price you have to pay for slandering the Fu clan. Empyrean fairy pointed at the small building and shouted angrily. The killing intent from her entire body could not be concealed. There was still no movement from the small building. Yan Qingyi did not seem to be afraid in the slightest. For a moment, the atmosphere became solemn, as if the two sides could clash at any time. You don't want to come out? Then I will kill my way in. Empyrean fairy shouted. Empyrean fairy, do you want to know the truth? Then I will tell you the truth, but this truth will be very cruel. I am worried that you may not be able to accept it. Yan Qingyi opened her mouth again. Deliberately mystifying. What truth? That is just a bunch of nonsense. Empyrean fairy said disdainfully. Yan Qingyi said indifferently, a few thousand years ago, your Fu clan's ancestor Fuxi, obtained the inheritance of the heavenly Tao. However, he took the heavenly Tao for himself. He did not follow the heavenly Tao's original intention and spread the heavenly Tao to millions of living beings. Therefore, he was a thief, a shameless person without honor. He took the heavenly Tao for himself and caused the heavenly Tao to lose a few thousand years of time. It did not spread the heavenly Tao to millions of living beings. This is the dark history of your Fu clan. Now that you know, are you satisfied? Yan Qingyi's words were truly earth-shattering. Everyone was so shocked that they almost forgot how to speak. It was as if the Empyrean fairy was immobilized. She even forgot to put down her raised foot. She stared blankly at the small building. These words were like an atomic bomb that was thrown into her heart, the power of which could be imagined. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1484. Was this the truth of the Fu clan? Everyone had a huge question mark in their minds. They didn't know if Yan Qingyi was just making things up to attack the Empyrean fairy, or if it was the truth. 81 Zhong Omega when Omega Net Tengjing also had this question mark in his mind, but as time passed and he thought about it carefully, this question mark became smaller and smaller until it disappeared. He actually believed Yan Qingyi's words. It wasn't that he couldn't tell the truth from the lies, but with his understanding of Yan Qingyi, especially now that she had obtained the inheritance of the heavenly Tao, there was no need for her to make up lies to attack the Empyrean fairy. This was an unnecessary move. Then the only explanation was, this was the truth. Nonsense, Ancestor Fuxi had the will of the heavens, so he obtained the inheritance of the heavenly Tao. This is his opportunity. The Empyrean fairy seemed to have woken up from a dream and yelled. Tangjing had known her for so long, but he had never seen her lose her composure like this. Actually, it wasn't hard to understand. After all, these words had almost destroyed her thoughts, so it would be abnormal if she didn't react. Will of the heavens? Is this what you all gave yourselves? If the heavenly Tao didn't choose him, how could he obtain the inheritance of the heavenly Tao and cultivate a supreme ability? Yan Qingyi said disdainfully. The heavenly Tao's original intention was for him to spread the heavenly Tao to every corner of the world, but he took it for himself. If this isn't a thief, then what is? Yan Qingyi continued. Every word was like a needle that stabbed into the Empyrean fairy's heart, causing it to be full of holes. The Empyrean fairy's eyes turned red as she roared, "Impossible, you're slandering me. You're just lying to yourself. This is the truth, anyone with eyes can see it. Moreover, why would I lie to you?" Yan Qingyi retorted. The others nodded secretly, obviously believing Yan Qingyi's words. The Empyrean fairy hurriedly took out a porcelain bottle and shouted, "Father, is she talking nonsense?" The Emperor of Heaven's voice floated out from the porcelain vase and said with righteous indignation, "Of course it's nonsense. Yan Qingyi, although you have obtained the inheritance, what is your motive for slandering my Fu clan? What enmity do we have with you? What enmity? If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have been able to obtain the inheritance of the heavenly Tao. Without the gate of heaven and the statue of Fuxi, would Yan Qingyi have such a fortuitous encounter? That was an unknown number. However, Yan Qingyi clearly did not think so. She casually said, "The heavenly Tao choosing me is a matter of time. Because I will carry out the will of the heavenly Tao and preach to the world. I will let everyone know about the heavenly Tao and let the believers of the heavenly Tao spread all over the world." Crazy, you're crazy. The Emperor of Heaven gritted his teeth and said with a trembling voice, "It's not that I'm crazy, it's that you all have taken the heavenly Tao for yourselves. If it wasn't for the fact that we all inherited the heavenly Tao, I would have scattered your soul when you were in my body." Ha, arrogant. Did you have the ability to do so back then? Shameless boasting. The Emperor of Heaven mocked. I didn't have the ability back then, but I definitely have the ability now. If you enter my body again, I will definitely let you experience it once to see if my words are true or false. Yan Qingyi did not show any signs of weakness and went tit for tat. The Emperor of Heaven immediately froze. He really did not dare to take the risk again. It was not easy for him to escape from Yan Qingyi's body. He was not an idiot. Why would he go back? Then what about the inner demons? He's in your body. Aren't you worried? Tang Jing finally had a chance to interject. The inner demons are indeed not simple. I spent a lot of energy to suppress them. Although I have no way to completely destroy them now, I believe that once I comprehend more of the heavenly Tao's mysteries, this will no longer be a problem. Yan Qingyi was very confident. People could not help but believe her, as if what she said was the truth. This kind of imperceptible influence was frightening. If it was a normal person facing her, even if her words were full of flaws, they would still be very persuasive and convincing. Tang Jing immediately realized this point. His face immediately became gloomy. Yan Qingyi kept saying that she wanted to preach to the world and carry out the will of the heavenly Tao, but he was scared witless. The heavenly Tao wanted everyone in the world to submit to it. What was the heavenly Tao's deeper purpose? Or was it an ulterior motive? Yao, don't listen to her nonsense. She dares to slander us like this. Tear down her little building so that she has nowhere to hide. The Emperor of Heaven ordered his daughter. The Empyrean fairy had been waiting for a long time and was ready to make a move. After hearing her father's words, how could she restrain herself? With a wave of her hand, the stately painting flew out. A gust of wind blew out from the stately painting, causing the little building to creak. It was on the verge of collapse, as if it would be destroyed at any moment. However, this only lasted for a short while before the little building calmed down. No matter how strong the wind was, the little building did not move at all. However, this courtyard had been destroyed. The chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers had been destroyed in an instant. There was nothing left and it turned into a mess. However, no one paid attention to it. Everyone's attention was focused on the small building. Seeing that his daughter was being threatened, Yen Patin was extremely worried. He no longer cared about the Empyrean fairy's illustrious reputation and leaped up. A sword light flashed in his hand and attacked the Empyrean fairy. He tried to use this to resolve his daughter's crisis. Tang Jing did not stop him. He believed in the Empyrean fairy's strength. Yen Padian and the other two were not her match, so there was no need to worry. As expected, a wall of wind blocked the sword light. The sword light was unable to break through this thick barrier. The three of them worked hard for a while, but there was nothing they could do. They could only give up in vain. They were greatly affected and were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. This was especially true for Yen Padin, who especially treasured this daughter of his. That was why he allowed her to be unrestrained and led a life that was completely different from that of an ordinary aristocratic family's. Yen Padin was worried about his daughter's safety. He glanced sideways and swept his gaze across Tang Jing, as if he had seen his savior. He grabbed onto Tang Jing's sleeve and said emotionally, "Young Master Tang, I beg you, help Qingyi. I only have this one daughter. If anything happens to her, what should I do?" Her words were just a moment of impulse and nonsense. You can't take it seriously. He was deliberately trying to explain for his daughter. Tang Jing was very clear on this point, so he naturally would not interfere. He broke free from Yen Potion's grasp and said with a serious tone, "Elder Yen, don't be impatient. Yen Qingyi might not be spouting nonsense. As for her safety, you don't have to worry at all." He had fought with Yen Qingyi before, so he was very clear that with Empyrean Fairy's strength, he might not be able to shake her. Since that was the case, what was there to worry about? Boom! With a loud sound, the Empyrean Fairy changed her attack pattern. With multiple attacks, the small building finally collapsed amidst the wind and rain. Dust flew into the sky and smoke rose in all directions. There was a person in the ruins. Chapter 1485. Yen Qingyi had finally appeared and attracted everyone's attention. Especially her attitude, it was hard to fathom. The Empyrean Fairy glared at her fiercely and said, "Aren't you in seclusion? Let's see how you're going to go into seclusion now." Before he finished speaking, he launched another attack. All the energy in the mountain river map poured out in torrents, pressing down on Yen Qingyi with an earth-shattering force. She was like a stabilizing needle. Although the waves were big, she remained unmoved. "Freeze!" Yan Qingyi slowly stretched out her finger and whispered. After a simple freeze word, everything changed. The earth-shattering force came to an abrupt end, as if someone had pressed the emergency stop button. The wind and rain stopped, and everything returned to calm. The mountain-river map's attack collapsed at this moment, as if it had never appeared. The Empyrean fairy swayed slightly, as if she had also suffered a considerable backlash. Her expression became unnatural. "Be careful." Tang Zheng immediately stood in front of the Empyrean fairy and faced Yan Qingyi directly. He stared at Yan Qingyi with a grave expression and said, "Yan Qingyi, your strength has indeed improved by leaps and bounds. Compared to the battle a few days ago, you've improved again." Yan Qingyi's seclusion was indeed very effective. In just a few days, she had improved by quite a bit. However, Tang Zheng was not afraid. He had the divine sword in his hand, so how could he be afraid of her? Yan Qingyi said, "Everything I said is the truth. They don't believe me, so what can I do?" The heavenly Tao did not pursue their responsibility. This is already extremely benevolent, but they still dare to go against me. Tang Zheng sighed. Yan Qingyi had indeed changed. The heavenly Tao had completely changed her. She was like a stranger now. The Emperor of Heaven angrily retorted, "How could it be the truth? I really didn't expect you to be so sinister. You actually slandered the Fu clan. Do you know the Fu clan's contributions? If it weren't for us, the human race would have suffered heavy losses in several great calamities." The past Emperor of Heaven had indeed done many things for the benefit of the country and the people. Protecting the human race was the mission of the past Emperor of Heaven. There was no doubt about this. Yan Qingyi remained unmoved and said, "If the heavenly Tao had been spread, the human race would not have faced a calamity. Therefore, this is still your fault." Yan Qingyi was overbearing and didn't give the other party a chance to breathe or resist. The Emperor of Heaven couldn't take it anymore and said, "Yao, kill her." When the other three members of the Yan family heard this, they trembled in fear and hurriedly said, "Calm down, Emperor of Heaven, calm down." This was Qin Yi's slip of the tongue. "Please don't be angry." They were deeply afraid that something would happen to Yan Qingyi. However, it was clear that Yan Qingyi didn't appreciate their kindness. She raised her hand and interrupted their words, saying, "I don't need anyone's charity. Moreover, what I said was the truth. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care. As for killing me, you can give it a try." Although the Empyrean fairy knew that she might not be able to kill Yan Qingyi, she still accepted her father's orders without hesitation. She got into position and prepared to attack. "Wait a moment." Tang Zheng stopped her. "Yan Qingyi, we came to find you today to clarify a few things." Yan Qingyi glanced at him and said, "What do you want to know?" "You keep mentioning the heavenly Tao. What is the heavenly Tao's goal?" Tang Zheng deeply felt that the heavenly Tao wasn't simple. Therefore, he raised this question first. "The heavenly Tao, of course, is to protect the people and save them," Yan Qingyi said with a strong sense of righteousness. Tang Zheng retorted, "The people of the world aren't in water or fire, why would they need the heavenly Tao to save them? Do you know that the people of the world aren't in water or fire? That's just because you haven't seen it. There are too many filth, wars, and diseases in this world. Aren't the people who are deeply involved in water or fire? The heavenly Tao wants to end all of this." Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. This was really big talk. No one dared to say that they wanted to end all of this. It was a bit like a fantasy story. Do you think it's possible? Why is it impossible? In front of the heavenly Tao, nothing is impossible. As long as you follow the heavenly Tao's will and do it with your heart, anything is possible. Yan Qingyi was full of confidence. Tang Zheng's head sank. Why did these words sound so familiar, as if he had heard them somewhere before? Dizong of Goguryeo. In a flash of inspiration, he remembered. Back then, Dizong of Goguryeo vowed to promote equality for all living things and make the world of spirits and souls an equal world. Wasn't he also so ambitious? Why did the heavenly Tao do this? This had been proven to be a failure. It was impossible to remove all the filth in the world. This was the reality, and there was no way to break this curse. Strange. Dizong of Goguryeo and the heavenly Tao actually lead to the same destination by different means. This is too strange. He racked his brains and frowned deeply. There's another point. The Buddhist Tao that the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva advocates is completely different from the heavenly Tao. There's even a natural rejection between them. Will these two completely different powers become enemies? This sudden whim made him seem to have caught something in the dark, but it disappeared immediately. He couldn't figure it out. However, one thing was certain. Buddhism and the heavenly Tao were not in harmony, but there was no such phenomenon in Tang Zheng's body. When he operated the Tian Shu and recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra, these two forces could go their own way without affecting each other. Moreover, these two forces could help Tang Zheng improve his cultivation and increase his genuine qi. He had never mentioned this to outsiders. If anyone knew, they would definitely be shocked. Of course, the world had almost no knowledge of Buddhism. Even if it was mentioned, no one would believe that there was a force in this world that could compete with the heavenly Tao. At least, Yan Qingyi and the Fu clan would never believe it. They had experienced the power of the heavenly Tao, and naturally thought that there was no other force in this world that could compete with the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao had a supreme and unparalleled position in their hearts. Tang Zheng thought mischievously. Didn't the heavenly Tao boast of being superior? It chose its successor, and was not satisfied with the way the Fu clan did things. If the heavenly Tao knew that there was another Buddhism besides itself, and there seemed to be signs of rising, what would the heavenly Tao think? Of course, all these were just Tang Zheng's psychological activities. He would not tell outsiders, and he did not think that there was a need to tell outsiders. Many years later, Tang Zheng recalled that it was fortunate that he did not tell others about the Buddhist Tao. Otherwise, the things that happened later would have completely changed. He would not be able to guess what kind of unknown direction it would develop in. But without a doubt, there was an extremely high possibility that it would develop in a direction that was disadvantageous to him. Yan Qingyi seemed to look down at the crowd and said, "You guys are too short-sighted. You guys are simply unable to know the good intentions of the heavenly Tao. Telling you all this is simply playing the lute to a cow." Playing the lute to a cow? Everyone was despised without exception. The few people from the Yan family had resentful expressions, especially Yan Patian. He was Yan Qingyi's father, and being said like this by his daughter was not a good feeling. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1486. In this regard, Tang Zheng could treat it calmly as if nothing had happened. Yan Qingyi believed that she was right. The world she saw, or rather the future, was different from everyone else's. Naturally, she felt superior. Ever since Yan Qingyi inherited the heavenly axiom, especially after this seclusion, she had a deeper understanding of the heavenly axiom. Not only did her combat strength increase greatly, but even her prophecy skills had improved tremendously. In the prophecy, she saw a vivid and moving scene. In the past, the scenes she saw with her prophecy were intermittent pictures. This time, however, she saw a complete picture, just like a video. There was a world of difference between the two. She saw it clearly, and it would no longer be the same as before. In this video, the world was united, and everyone was bathed in the light of the heavenly axiom. The heavenly axiom operated, and the whole world was a pure land of the heavenly axiom. It was precisely because of this scene in the prophecy that Yan Qingyi's determination was strengthened. She had always been a strong-willed person. In the beginning, she was focused on comprehending the Tao and acted alone. She did not care about the rumors outside, and even the opposition of her family at first. From this, it could be seen how persistent she was in her pursuit of the great Tao. Now, she had finally found the great Tao, the heavenly Tao. She believed that she had already achieved perfection, so how could she give up the obsession in her heart just because of a few words from Tang Zheng? Tang Zheng did not know the inside story, so he asked another question. Yan Qingyi, the inner demons are in your body. The inner demons are not ordinary people. How are you going to deal with them? Don't fall into the hands of the inner demons in the end. Then you will lose more than you gain. Tang Zheng was quite afraid of the inner demons. This was because of the actions of Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor, which made him deeply vigilant. Naturally, he did not want the inner demons to have a chance to see the light of day again. Therefore, he wanted to know how Yan Qingyi would deal with the inner demons. I've already said that the inner demons are nothing to be afraid of. The heavenly Tao can suppress him now, making him unable to cause any waves. Although he is in my body, he is like a prisoner. The day I succeed in my Tao will be the day he dies. Tang Jing stared at Yan Qingyi. He could see her strong self-confidence. He knew that no matter how much he said, it would be useless. He didn't say anything else. The inner demons had come to an end for the time being. It might not be easy for the inner demons to escape. In addition, at the beginning, Tang Zheng and the Emperor of Heaven wanted to determine whether the inheritance Yan Qingyi received in the Heaven's Gate was the real Heavenly Tao or the Heavenly Book. Now, there was no need to confirm. She received the real Heavenly Tao inheritance and not the Heavenly Book. The Emperor of Heaven also knew this. Yan Qingyi received the inheritance of the Heavenly Tao, but she kept saying that the Fu clan had betrayed the Heavenly Tao. This was definitely not something that Yan Qingyi made up. This was probably the will of the Heavenly Tao. Since this was the case, the Emperor of Heaven's respect for the Heavenly Tao naturally decreased. Even if the Heavenly Tao dared to criticize the Fu clan, the Emperor of Heaven would definitely not accept it. The Emperor of Heaven's thoughts turned thousands of times. It was extremely complicated. He said directly, "Yao, I will lend you a hand. Kill this woman who is spreading lies." When Tang Zheng heard the Emperor of Heaven's words, he could also hear many emotions in his tone. He actually believed Yan Qingyi's words about the Fu clan. He believed that the Emperor of Heaven definitely believed 70 to 80% of it. But the Emperor of Heaven had no way out. He could only refute and kill Yan Qingyi. Only then could he clear the name of the Fu clan and his own Tao. Yan Qingyi's words were equivalent to planting the seed of the inner demons in his heart. If the Emperor of Heaven couldn't get rid of it or walk out of it, then his future cultivation would be filled with difficulties. Therefore, the Emperor of Heaven could only fight with all his might. Father and daughter were connected by heart. How could the Empyrean fairy not understand her father's thoughts and situation? Her figure flashed and rushed towards Yan Qingyi. "You overestimate yourself." Yan Qingyi scolded disdainfully. Her slender white hands opened and closed. A slap sounded, but it was like a sudden clap of thunder. It was so loud that it hurt the eardrums of those who heard it. The power of the Heavenly Tao circulated and gathered around her body. She seemed to be in the center of a huge energy whirlpool. The outside was abnormally violent, but she was calm and peaceful. There was no danger at all. When Tang Jing saw this scene, he was shocked. He could already feel the terrifying destructive power contained in the storm. "Fu Yao, be careful." At the critical moment, he roared and rushed towards her without caring about his own safety. He tried to block this attack for her. Swish! With a flash of sword light, the hidden mysterious sword appeared in his hand. The 3 saint inscriptions lit up. The 3 straight saint inscriptions emitted a terrifying power. This was the first time the hidden mysterious sword's saint inscriptions were shown to the outside world. Although there were only 3 saint inscriptions, they contained a great beauty and terrifying power. It was like a human skeleton. The reason why a saint artifact was because of the saint inscriptions. Everyone's attention was attracted by the saint inscriptions. Even Yan Qingyi was no exception. It was not that she had never seen a saint artifact before, but she had never seen a saint artifact like this. She did not know much about saint artifacts, but with one look, she knew that the key was the 3 saint inscriptions. "Tang Zheng, you've changed a lot in the past few days." She roared and split into 2. Part of the Heavenly Tao's power surged towards Tang Zheng. At this moment of life and death, she dared to split her attention. It could be seen how confident she was in herself. In fact, she was even conceited. The Empyrean fairy saw this and was secretly delighted. She said to herself, "Father, the heavens are helping us. Since she wants to die, we'll fulfill her wish." Without anyone noticing, the Emperor of Heaven's soul had left the porcelain bottle and transferred to the Empyrean fairy's body. He wanted to help his daughter, so the best way to do so was to have his soul possess her body. This way, not only could he unleash the Empyrean Fairy's strength, but he could also unleash part of the Emperor of Heaven's strength. With both of their strengths added together, one could imagine how powerful they were. No one noticed this. However, this was not completely untraceable. Everyone's attention was attracted by the hidden sword, forgetting about the painting of mountains and rivers of the gods of earth and Vale in midair. The painting seemed to have become extraordinarily vivid, as if it had really come to life. The mountains, rivers, and lakes were all glowing with endless vitality. As the owner of the stately painting, the Empyrean Fairy immediately noticed the abnormality and exclaimed to herself. She had never noticed such a change in the stately painting, so the only possibility was that her father had triggered this change. The stately painting was given to her by him, so her father knew better than her that she had not fully unleashed the power of this magic weapon before. She could not help but feel ashamed. The Emperor of Heaven sensed her mood and immediately comforted her. Yao, the stately painting was your mother's magic weapon. Today I will fully unleash its power. From now on, you will truly inherit your mother's stately painting. What? The Empyrean Fairy's emotions fluctuated violently. The stately painting was actually her mother's magic weapon. Regarding her mother, there was an insurmountable hurdle in her heart. It was an eternal pain in her heart. She was never willing to mention it, but the magic weapon she had always used was her mother's legacy. She never thought of it. The stately painting is by your side, just like your mother is by your side, never leaving you. This is your mother's last wish. She has never blamed you. Every word of the Emperor of Heaven struck the softest part of the Empyrean Fairy's heart. She has never blamed me? A voice sounded from the bottom of the Empyrean Fairy's heart. She was skeptical, as if she was interrogating herself. This was the greatest fear in her heart. When she faced the inner demons, this fear almost swallowed her up. It was obvious how great the impact on her was. She is your mother. Why would she blame you? The Emperor of Heaven said earnestly. She doesn't blame me? Really not? The Empyrean Fairy asked herself. Unknowingly, the fear in her heart dissipated bit by bit. As if something had broken, rays of light bloomed from the depths of her heart, covering every corner of her body. At this moment, the fear vanished like smoke and clouds. Her eyes lit up as she stared at the stately painting. In her pupils, a figure gradually became clear. Her mother, the person she had been deliberately forgetting. It was completely clear, just like the image she had of her mother when she was young. She was the closest person to her. Her mother smiled at her. That smile was as warm and affectionate as when she was young. Her heart completely melted. The mysterious change was silent. To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1487. Fear melted like ice and snow, and the Empyrean Fairy's heart bloomed with light, and the shackles in her heart were instantly opened. The vital energy in her body began to roll, and it was completely different from before. She immediately noticed this change, and her heart moved. She knew that her opportunity had come. Although her cultivation was already very high, her cultivation was naturally affected by fear. Now that the fear had dissipated, she felt as if she was free. His true chi continued to rise, and so did his cultivation level. Not only that, but her connection with the mountain river map had also become more intimate. In the past, she always felt that there was a layer of paper between them, but now there was no barrier to communication. No one noticed the change in her. Her cultivation was rocketing up like a rocket. Boom, boom, boom. Bottlenecks were broken one after another. Her cultivation was broken again and again, and finally, it stopped at the fourth stage of the Mahayana realm. Tang Zhang's cultivation was only at the fourth stage of the Mahayana realm, so in a short time, she had caught up with Tang Zhang's cultivation. It could be seen how great her harvest was this time. Fourth stage of the Mahayana realm. The Empyrean Fairy was also shocked by her own cultivation. She didn't expect to have such a great harvest after resolving the fear in her heart. Everything between heaven and earth seemed to have changed. She was more sensitive to the spiritual energy between heaven and earth, as if she was one with heaven and earth. The celestial the arch noticed her change and heaved a long sigh. "You've suffered all these years." The Emperor of Heaven knew very well that if she didn't have this fear in her heart, then her cultivation would definitely be higher than it was now. He wanted to resolve this fear at first, but it hadn't been long since it happened. The shackles in her heart were too strong, and he couldn't shake it at all. As time passed, the shackles loosened, and he was able to seize this opportunity to resolve the fear in her heart. "Father, I'll deal with her," the Empyrean fairy said to the Emperor of Heaven. The Emperor of Heaven didn't hesitate and immediately handed over the control of the mountain river map. Once again, the Empyrean fairy was in full control of the painting. She seemed to have become one with it, just like when she was young, her mother was always by her side. The lifelike patterns on the painting of mountains and rivers of the gods of earth and Vale seemed to be connected to her mind. "Attack!" She roared in her heart, and her attacks were like a tidal wave, pouring out in all directions. The power of the mountains and lakes descended from the map of mountains and rivers. There was no wind, fire, thunder and lightning, no rocks and gales. Everything was quiet, completely unlike the chaotic scene before. However, Yan Qingyi and Tang Jing immediately noticed that something was amiss. They raised their heads and looked at the radiant light in the sky. The painting of mountains and rivers was like a spectator. What terrifying power! Both of them had this thought at the same time. To be able to make the two of them feel this way, it was obvious how powerful this power was. Tang Zheng and Yan Qingyi had already accumulated all their strength and attacked each other with all their might. They had no time to be distracted, and neither of them took the Empyrean fairy's attack seriously. However, at this moment, the Empyrean fairy's attack was so terrifying. Their minds immediately turned upside down, and there was a different kind of change. Tang Zheng was secretly delighted, but Yan Qingyi was extremely worried. She wasn't afraid of the Empyrean fairy in the past, but the power displayed by the Empyrean fairy now was so different that she couldn't ignore it at all. However, it was all too late. She could only deal with one of the two attacks. In the end, she didn't turn around to deal with the Empyrean fairy. Instead, she treated Tang Zheng as the biggest threat and dealt with him with all her strength. Boom! The hidden profound sword and her heavenly Tao collided, and a terrifying power spread out in all directions with the two of them as the center. Like an earthquake, the ground cracked inch by inch, and the house collapsed with a loud bang, turning into ruins, causing smoke and dust to fill the sky. Yen Padian and the other two were like kites with their strings cut. They were actually unable to stabilize their bodies under the intense shockwave and were directly sent flying, falling into the distance in a sorry state. After witnessing this scene with their own eyes, they finally understood what a terrifying battle was. The battle between the two of them could be said to be terrifying to the extreme, causing people to tremble in fear. The only exception was the Empyrean fairy. She didn't move at all, as if she was a stabilizing needle. She had already gathered all of her strength and attacked Yan Qingyi in one go. Boom! With a loud sound, Yan Qingyi's defensive power collapsed. After a portion of the mountain river map's power was offset, it completely hit Yan Qingyi. Bright red blood spurted out from her mouth, and her face immediately turned incomparably pale. She staggered and fell to the ground. With a dong sound, she fiercely crashed into the ground, and blood flowed down her forehead. Yan Qingyi had never been in such a sorry state before. This time, facing the pincer attack of Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy, her pride was finally ruthlessly smashed to the ground. Furthermore, it was in front of everyone's eyes. This was a powerful counterattack to her previous high profile, like a slap to her face. This was equivalent to slapping the face of the heavenly Tao, as if to show that the insufferably arrogant heavenly Tao was not invincible. There was still a way to defeat it. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as he looked meaningfully at the Empyrean fairy. Although he had already realized that her strength had become stronger, the actual situation still far exceeded his expectations. The three types of power released their respective powers, and then disappeared into nothingness. It seemed to have returned to peace. Qingyi. When the three people from the Yen family saw this scene, their hearts jumped to their throats, and they rushed towards Yan Qingyi without caring about their own safety. "Qingyi, how are you?" Yan Potion's face was pale as he stood in front of Yan Qingyi to protect her, and said with incomparable nervousness, "Don't scare me. With me here, even if I die, I won't let anyone hurt you again." His face was resolute, as if he was facing death with equanimity. Yan Qingyi crawled up from the ground. There was still blood at the corner of her mouth, and her pale face was filled with disappointment. She muttered to herself, "How could I lose? How could I lose?" She was in a daze, unable to accept this cruel reality. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy did not have the slightest bit of pity. The Empyrean Fairy gnashed her teeth in hatred and said, "Weren't you insufferably arrogant just now? Now that you've lost, you can't accept reality. What successor of the heavenly Tao? It's nothing more than that." The Empyrean Fairy had been influenced since she was young and had an extraordinary reverence for the heavenly Tao. However, Yan Qingyi's various actions had completely defeated the reverence in her heart. She no longer respected the heavenly Tao, but instead felt a strong sense of resistance in her heart. Yan Qingyi was ridiculed. He hung his head dejectedly, just like a defeated general. "Yan Qingyi, you must be responsible for your actions. You will bear serious consequences for insulting the Fu clan." The Empyrean Fairy walked towards Yan Qingyi step by step, as if she wanted to fulfill her words. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. The Empyrean Fairy's attitude was so firm. Where should he go? Should he just stand by and watch, or should he stop her? For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 1488. Yan Patian stood in front of his daughter to protect her. His will was firm. If he wanted to harm Yan Qingyi, then he would have to step over his corpse. The Empyrean Fairy did not retreat and approached Yan Qingyi step by step. Tang Zheng glanced at the dazed Yan Qingyi, and his heart skipped a beat. He had a deep relationship with Yan Qingyi, although she had changed now, but if he allowed the Empyrean Fairy to kill her right under his nose, he couldn't do it. "Wait a minute." Tang Zheng moved slightly, blocking in front of the Empyrean Fairy, and said, "Let me say a few words to her first." "You want to protect her?" the Empyrean Fairy asked with an unfriendly gaze. Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment, then said, "I'm not protecting her, I just want her to have another choice." The Empyrean Fairy looked at him deeply, and said meaningfully, "She has already been blinded by the heavens, can she listen to your words?" "I have to give it a try." Tang Zheng shrugged. The Empyrean Fairy fell silent. Tang Zheng took a step forward, stared straight at Yan Qingyi, and said, "Yan Qingyi, what the heavens have promised you is simply impossible to achieve. Why must you be so obstinate?" Yan Qingyi raised her head, her dejected emotions seemed to have disappeared a little, and said, "Tang Zheng, you have also obtained the heavenly book and comprehended the heavenly Tao, yet you said such words. It seems that you have not comprehended the essence of the heavenly Tao, otherwise, you would not be so shallow." "Shallow?" Tang Zheng was both angry and amused. "Don't you realize that what you're talking about is like a castle in the air, something illusory? I will make all of this a reality." Yan Qingyi seemed to have regained her confidence bit by bit, and her eyes once again glowed with vigor. This was Yan Qingyi. How could she be someone who would completely lose her fighting spirit after a single failure? She was alone, comprehending the great Tao for so many years, and almost no one could understand her. She was also not scared away or admitted defeat, which showed how tenacious her willpower was. The Empyrean Fairy sneered and said, "Did you see that? She refuses to come to her senses. How can you make her come to her senses with just a few words?" Tang Zheng helplessly let out a long sigh. When Yan Patian heard his sigh, his heart almost jumped out of his chest, and he impatiently said, "Young Master Tang, Qingyi is just confused for a moment. We will advise her properly, let her go." He had no choice but to plead for mercy for Yan Qingyi. Seeing Yan Qingyi's fearful expression, Tang Zheng's heart felt as if it was being squeezed as he said, "Elder Yan, she is not confused for a moment." When Yan Patian heard this, he became even more terrified, and almost knelt down in front of Tang Zheng. He said miserably, "Young Master Tang, I only have this one daughter, please let her go." Elder Yen, you're being too serious. This is not a question of whether I will let her go or not, but whether she will let me go or not. Tang Zheng could almost foresee what Yen Qingyi would do after she became stronger and stronger. Yen Pan hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, young Master Tang, how could she be your opponent? Naturally, the situation you mentioned will not happen." Wasn't that the best evidence? Xian Nv of the Nine Heavens added, "Father, you don't have to ask him to kill me? That would require the approval of the heavenly Tao." Yen Qingyi did not appreciate it at all, and extended her hand to push Yen Patian to the side. Yen Patian stomped his feet anxiously, and said, "Qingyi, don't say such big words. How can you contend against young Master Tang's strength?" Yen Patian purposely belittled his daughter in order to make Tang Zheng let her go. Yen Qingyi did not seem to understand her father's painstaking efforts at all, and instead went against him at every turn. She resolutely walked towards Tang Zheng and said, "Tang Zheng, you don't believe in me, you don't believe in the heavenly Tao. This is your short-sighted loss, and you will regret it in the future." Yen Qingyi was 3 meters away from Tang Zheng, and suddenly launched an attack. "Be careful," the Empyrean fairy hurriedly reminded him. Tang Zheng was completely focused, and did not let his guard down at all. Naturally, he would not let Yen Qingyi succeed, and the light of the hidden profound sword instantly enveloped Yen Qingyi. A delicate shout rang out from the sword light, and the sword light broke open a hole. Yen Qingyi rushed out from the hole, and formed a seal with her hands. Talismans flew out from her hands, and immediately attached themselves to the hidden profound sword. The light of the hidden profound sword immediately dimmed by a lot. "Master, these talismans are very powerful." The sword spirit immediately informed Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood. He was not unfamiliar with talismans. Many people would use them when cultivating, but most of them were auxiliary. However, Yen Qingyi's talismans were obviously not ordinary. There were rays of light moving along a certain trajectory, and this was the difference between them and ordinary talismans. Her talismans seemed to have come to life, possessing vitality. As a result, the power was naturally incomparable. It must be that flowing light that gives the talisman such a different kind of power. Tang Zheng's fiery eyes of truth confirmed it with a single glance. He was not wrong. Yen Qingyi was not good at using magic treasure weapons, and she did not like to use them either. Now that her comprehension of the heavenly Tao had reached a higher level, she had made a new discovery. The attacks of the heavenly Tao could borrow the power of talismans, and could give the talismans a great deal of power. This was an aspect that was overlooked by ordinary people, but it could greatly increase her combat strength. In this aspect, she had only scratched the surface, so in the battle just now, she did not use it. Now that it was a matter of life and death, she finally did not dare to hide it. Bang! With a muffled sound, the talisman shattered, but the hidden profound sword also retreated. Yen Qingyi took this opportunity to brush past Tang Zheng. At this moment, the Empyrean fairy's attack came unexpectedly. The stately painting sprinkled a terrifying power. The talisman rose again. This was borrowing the power of the heavenly Tao. It was endless. Even though Yen Qingyi was injured, she was not affected much. The talisman flickered, rose into the air, and circled around Tang Zheng's body. Boom! The power of the stately painting poured onto Yen Qingyi, but did not obtain the same effect as before. It was completely blocked by the talisman. Although the talisman had completely collapsed, Yen Qingyi still borrowed the power of the talisman to rise into the air, but she did not fall from midair. A talisman appeared under her feet, carrying her like a bird. With a whoosh, she flew into the distance. For someone like her, who did not have any Dharma treasures, to be able to borrow the power of talismans, it was an eye-opener for Tang Zheng. He could not help but be impressed. The heavenly Tao was indeed extraordinary. It actually allowed her to possess such a powerful mystique. "Don't let her escape," the Emperor of Heaven shouted. The Empyrean fairy immediately chased after her. "Somersault cloud!" Tang Zheng shouted, and the somersault cloud immediately flew to his feet. He rode the cloud and chased after Yen Qingyi. The 3 members of the Yen family were dumbfounded. They were as anxious as ants on a hot pan, but they looked at each other helplessly. Because they were martial artists, they did not know how to fly at all. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1489. Yan Qingyi was as fast as lightning, and the speed of the talisman was extremely fast. Under the influence of the heavenly Tao, she was like a shooting star that streaked across the sky. She was actually slightly faster than the Empyrean fairy. The Empyrean fairy was burning with anxiety. She heard a strong gust of wind from the side and a voice said, "Come up quickly. Let's chase them together." The Empyrean fairy jumped onto the somersault cloud without hesitation. She was very clear that the somersault cloud's speed was much faster than hers. If she did not want to fall behind too much, she could only travel together with Tang Zheng. Whoosh whoosh. One after the other, two rays of light streaked across the sky. The sound of the wind was biting cold, and both parties heard it. Yan Qingyi's heart was also in her mouth. Even my talisman is unable to shake off these two people. This is really inconceivable. Yan Qingyi thought to herself, but she did not give in. I am the successor of the heavenly Tao. How can I fall into their hands? Furthermore, if I can't even overcome this, what right do I have to preach to the world? She took a deep breath and overcame the fear in her heart. She was in high spirits again. The talisman transformed and completely covered her. Where did she go? On the somersault cloud, Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy opened their eyes wide at the same time and asked this question. Yan Qingyi disappeared into thin air. It must be the work of that talisman. The Emperor of Heaven's voice rang out. He returned to the porcelain bottle once again to avoid harming Yan Qingyi if he stayed in her body for too long. Tang Zheng's heart tightened and he blurted out, "Are talismans that powerful?" "Talismans are far more powerful than you think," the Emperor of Heaven said worriedly. Clearly, he was not speaking without thinking. Regarding the use of talismans, Ancestor Fuxi was the most knowledgeable. Back then, he was the most proficient in talismans. It was just that no one inherited his legacy. Who would have thought that Yan Qingyi would have such luck? Several people were very clear that Yan Qingyi's talisman was not inherited from Fuxi, but was comprehended from the heavenly Tao. Fuxi's talisman divine art was also comprehended from the heavenly Tao. It was just that other people didn't have the opportunity and perception that he had. Tang Zheng and Yan Qingyi's expressions were extremely ugly, and their hearts became heavy. Although Yan Qingyi had fled in a sorry state, as long as she successfully escaped, it would be equivalent to their failure. In fact, Tang Zheng was also proficient in illusions, and invisibility was one of them. However, after he used his mystique, his eyes of fire and gold did not discover Yan Qingyi's whereabouts. Thus, he could only ask the Emperor of Heaven for help. Do you have a way to track them? The Emperor of Heaven was ashamed and said regretfully, "No, I don't know much about talismans. Especially since the other party's talisman was comprehended from the heavenly Tao. It is completely different from ordinary talismans, and is not that easy to see through." One sentence cut off Tang Zheng's thoughts. His heart was burning with anxiety, but there was nothing he could do. The Empyrean fairy was so angry that she stomped her feet and said unwillingly, "Then we can only give up like this?" Actually, the three of them were very clear that both parties were racing against time. After this short while, Yan Qingyi would definitely slip away and never be found again. Tang Zheng and the Emperor of Heaven both fell into silence. After a long time, the Emperor of Heaven said faintly, "Yao, don't worry. After I am reborn, I will definitely find her to settle this matter and seek justice for the Fu clan." The Empyrean fairy gradually calmed down. Recalling Yan Qingyi's words from before, she was still angry in her heart. However, she could not hold back her curiosity and asked the Emperor of Heaven for confirmation. "Then what she said about the Fu clan, is it true?" The Emperor of Heaven hesitated for a moment and said, "The ancestors of the Fu clan will not be tainted by others. Even if they really did that, they would definitely have other considerations. What kind of person is Ancestor Fuxi? The problems that he thinks about are not things that we can think of. Therefore, we have to believe in him unconditionally. This is what the descendants of the Fu clan should do. The Emperor of Heaven's impassioned speech moved the Empyrean fairy. She nodded her head heavily and said, "Father's words are true. Your daughter will remember them." The few of them returned to the Yen family. The 3 people from the Yen family were anxious to death. Seeing them return, they rushed over and asked impatiently, "Where's Qingyi? What did you do to her?" The Empyrean fairy snorted coldly, extremely displeased. Tang Jing said calmly, "You don't have to worry too much. She has already escaped, and we can't do anything to her." The 3 of them heaved a sigh of relief at the same time, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Yen Panyin patted his chest and said, "You really scared this old thing to death." As soon as he finished speaking, he realized that his words seemed to be a little awkward. With a resentful expression, he raised his head to look at Tang Jing, and his heart started to feel uneasy again. Yen Qingyi had escaped, but even if she could run away, she couldn't run away from the temple. The Yen family, who had a lot of businesses, was still here. Would they make a move on the Yen family? The 3 of them felt their hearts rise again. Tang Jing had already seen some clues from the changes in their expressions, and said meaningfully, "You don't have to worry, I won't do anything to you." Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. Now that I have a grudge with Yen Qingyi, I won't vent my anger on you guys. Moreover, my relationship with the Yen family is not shallow, so how could I make a move on you guys? Yen Qingyi was Yen Qingyi, and the others were the others. Tang Jing was very clear about this. Tang Jing did not have the slightest complaint about the Yen clan's actions in the past. After all, even Ji Wuxiang's threats and promises did not rope them in. This was under the circumstances where they knew that Tang Jing was dead, so it could be seen how precious this relationship was. If it wasn't for Yen Qingyi, the 2 sides definitely wouldn't have reached such an awkward state. When Yen Patian heard these words, his heart stirred, and he said emotionally, "We also don't want to come to this. Actually, Qingyi has always been a child with her own opinions since she was young, and we can't interfere with the things that he has decided." Even though he said that, Tang Jing still said earnestly, "You all heard her bold words. Do you think she will succeed? How could it be so easy to spread the Tao to the world? Moreover, was it possible for the entire world to revere a so-called heavenly Tao? It is impossible for the human heart to be completely unified." The 3 members of the Yen family fell into silence. Tang Jing also did not stay for long. In order to avoid awkwardness between the 2 sides, he muttered to himself for a moment, and said, "If there is anything in the future, if the Yen family needs any help, feel free to come find me." The 3 of them looked at him in surprise. They never thought that after this battle, he would actually help the Yen family. Yen Potion's eyes were red, and he said emotionally, "Young Master Tang, I'm ashamed." Tang Jing smiled faintly, and turned to leave the Yen family with the Empyrean fairy, leaving the 3 of them standing in the midst of the mess for a long time, looking at each other without saying a word. The Empyrean fairy was extremely unwilling, but she also had a pressing matter that she needed to do, and that was to help the Emperor of Heaven be reborn. Once the Emperor of Heaven was resurrected, his strength would be even stronger. The next time he met Yen Qingyi, the 2 of them would join hands and would definitely not give her the chance to escape. "Tang Jing, ever since I was resurrected in the ancient tomb, I have never left you. But now that my father and daughter are reunited, and my father needs to return to the sun, I have to find a suitable body for him." The Empyrean fairy changed the topic and actually bid farewell. Tang Jing was startled for a moment. He stared straight at the Empyrean fairy, suddenly feeling a sense of reluctance and discomfort. After she was resurrected, she had almost always done things for him, and had never taken the initiative to ask to leave. This request made him feel somewhat at a loss, but he couldn't find a reason to refute it. Seeing him staring at him blankly, the Empyrean fairy asked, "Do you not agree?" Tang Jing laughed bitterly. "How could I not agree? It's just that I'm not used to your departure." The Empyrean fairy said disapprovingly, "It's not like we're parting forever. We still have time to meet again. I wish you success. Thank you. See you later." The Empyrean fairy waved his sleeves, not taking away a single cloud, incomparably confident and at ease. Tang Zheng looked at her back deeply for a while. Suddenly, it was as if a part of his heart had been taken away, leaving him empty. He took a deep breath, turned around, and walked back home. You clearly don't want to leave, so why don't you tell him? The Emperor of Heaven's voice sounded in the Empyrean fairy's ears. The Empyrean fairy's heartstrings trembled, but she pretended to be calm and lightly said, "What do you mean I don't want to leave? Ha, you are my daughter. I raised you since you were young, so how could I not understand you? You can fool others, but you can't fool me." The Emperor of Heaven said confidently. The Empyrean fairy was silent, refusing to comment. The Emperor of Heaven then said, "Actually, this little brat is a celestial with the 9 yang saint body. His cultivation base is high, and he is indeed a rare talent. He is just barely worthy of you." "Father, why are you saying this?" The 9 heavens mystic maiden, who had seen countless storms and waves and was decisive in killing, immediately turned as red as an apple when she heard her father bring up these matters of love of his own accord. "You're already grown up, so what's there to be embarrassed about? Look at how thick that little brat Tang Zheng's skin is. You should learn from him. After all these years, his skin is still so thin." The Emperor of Heaven sincerely said, "I'm a girl." In front of her father, the Empyrean fairy finally returned to her daughter's side. "What does a girl have? My daughter doesn't lose to a man in any way." The Emperor of Heaven paused for a moment, no longer pressing her. He took a roundabout route and meaningfully said, "That little brat has the 9 yang saint body. Next year he will be 20 years old, and it's almost the end of the year. Don't look at how he can still control his pure yang energy. Once it erupts, it won't be as easy to control as before." The Empyrean fairy had a similar experience. If it weren't for the heavenly bed, she would have already died, so she knew how serious this matter was. Her heart couldn't help but hang up. The Emperor of Heaven sensed his daughter's thoughts, but he pretended not to see and said, "Don't look at how his cultivation has increased by leaps and bounds. This is indeed a good thing, but sometimes it can be fatal. When the time comes, if he can't control his pure yang energy, then his little life won't be guaranteed." "Father, you're experienced and knowledgeable. Think of a way to save him." The Empyrean fairy almost didn't think and blurted out these words. "Why should I save him? That little brat doesn't respect me at all." The Emperor of Heaven unhappily said, "That's because you're not familiar with him. Actually, he's a very good person." The Empyrean fairy defended herself. "Actually, it's not like there's no way." The Emperor of Heaven changed the topic and mischievously smiled. "You marry him, and your yin and yang are in harmony. Your 9 saint body is the best way to save him." "Father, why did you come back to this?" The Empyrean fairy was greatly embarrassed. She coquettishly glared with her eyes wide open. Her face was as pink as peach blossoms. Even the sun in the sky paled in comparison to her. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1490. In the outskirts of the capital, Tang Zheng and Xiaobai took advantage of the night to fly over. In the dead of the night, no one discovered the whereabouts of these two people. They deliberately chose this time to fool others. This time they were going to do a risky thing, which was to open a spatial door and go to the sky beyond heaven to investigate. Tang Zheng had already comprehended a part of the spatial laws, so he didn't have to rely on Xiaobai's divine sense to pass through like before. With Xiaobai's assistance, he believed that he could smoothly pass through to the sky beyond heaven. The two flew up into the sky. The sky was the place where the spatial restrictions were the weakest, so it was the best place to open a spatial door. This was also the reason why the demons came from the sky. The two looked at each other. Xiaobai nodded and said, "Master, let's begin." Xiaobai's comprehension of the spatial laws was not as good as Tang Zheng's, so he could only use his divine sense to pass through. Therefore, he also wanted to try to pass through with Tang Zheng's body. In this process, he would definitely gain something. Tang Zheng calmed himself down. His eyes were fixed on the bright stars in the sky. He was in the middle of the stars, as if he was a neighbor of the stars. He activated his divine ability and a mysterious aura spread out from his hands. He waved his hands and the air between his hands began to fluctuate. It became more and more intense until it was like boiling water. Goyulu. Streams of air flowed out from the boiling point and a black crack appeared in the middle. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and continued to activate his skills. Finally, the crack became bigger and bigger. Finally, it formed a door big enough for two people to pass through. This was the spatial door. Master, you're really amazing. Xiaobai looked at this scene without blinking. He understood something and praised from the bottom of his heart. Let's go. I'll need you to take action later. Tang Jing smiled faintly and said calmly. The two of them passed through the spatial door together. With a whoosh, the spatial door disappeared and the sky became calm again. Even if an outsider came here, they would definitely not know that someone had just passed through the spatial door. Xiaobai had a natural sense of familiarity with the sky beyond sky. Even though Tang Zheng's spiritual sense had reached the sky beyond sky before, it was incomparable to Xiaobai's innate sense of familiarity. Therefore, once he passed through the spatial door, he would need Xiaobai to lead the way and pass through the spatial turbulence to arrive at his destination accurately. Amidst the chaos, Xiaobai pointed in a direction and nodded at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood and cast his divine ability again. A spatial door suddenly opened in front of them, and they hurriedly passed through it. Whoosh! The spatial door closed once again. They turned their heads at the same time and saw that the boundless sky was completely silent. There were still faintly discernible stars hanging in the sky, as if the night had just receded and the day was coming. Moreover, there was a red sun in the sky. It was not a red sun. Tang Jing immediately denied it. It was more like a moon that was about to sink into the horizon. Is the moon in the sky beyond sky red? Tang Jing blurted out. Xiaobai glanced at it and said, Blood moon. It's as red as blood. This is the moon in the sky beyond sky. When the scarlet lunar beasts absorb the essence of the moonlight, the moon will turn into a blood moon. Could it be related to this? Tang Zheng asked as if he understood. The scarlet lunar beasts rely on absorbing the power of the blood moon to become stronger step by step. This is the magical part of the scarlet lunar beasts. From the inherited memories of my people, I found out that a long time ago, the moon in the sky beyond sky was also like the moon in the human world. It was porcelain white. As the number of scarlet lunar beasts increased, they kept absorbing the essence of the moonlight. The moon remained in its blood-red state for a long time. In the end, the moon was completely dyed red, and it has remained in its blood-red state ever since. Listening to Xiaobai's tireless explanation, Tang Zheng was secretly shocked. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the scarlet lunar beasts were in the past. Furthermore, the scarlet lunar beasts were loyal to the royal family. How powerful must the royal family be? He suppressed the sigh in his heart and watched as the blood moon disappeared. A bright red sun rose from the horizon, bringing warmth to the world. In order to avoid being discovered, the two of them quickly descended from the sky. Previously, they had coincidentally encountered the natives of the sky beyond sky attacking Kingsman. Kingsman was at death's door. If they had not stepped in and scared off the enemy, Kingsman would have been wiped out. No one would care about the survival of such a small sect that had long since declined. The place they transmigrated to this time was different from the previous time. There were no fire trees or ice trees. Instead, it was a barren land. Yes, this place was very barren. It was like a different world compared to the lush forest from before. Tang Zheng almost asked if he had transmigrated to the wrong world and came to another world. Xiaobai had inherited the royal family's memory, so he explained, this is the barren land of the sky beyond sky. It's the most barren place in the sky beyond sky. No one lives here. In fact, no one is willing to set foot in this place. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that there was nothing in this barren land other than the fiery red stones. There was not even a single blade of grass. Moreover, the air was very dry and hot. It was even hotter than the dog days of June in the human world. Tang Zheng was already immune to both heat and cold. Naturally, he was not afraid. Let's go to the enemy's core then. Before they came, the two of them had already discussed the itinerary. It was best to find a way to infiltrate the enemy's core. That way, they would be able to obtain the most information. After all, most of the memories that Xiaobai had inherited were outdated. They could not provide much reference value. Since it was the barren land, there was no need to worry about being discovered. Therefore, the two of them rose into the air and flew at a low altitude. The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from below. The two of them were shocked at the same time. They did not need to look to know that someone had attacked them. Was this not the barren land, where there was no one? Why would someone attack them? Could it be that the current ruler did not even make a mistake in this barren land and even sent people to guard it? Their minds were full of thoughts. They could not figure out what was going on, but their nerves immediately tensed up. If the enemy really discovered their whereabouts, it would be a tough battle. "I'll do it, master." Xiaobai took the initiative to take on the role of a guard. He did not give Tang Jing a chance to attack. With a wave of his hand, 2 balls of flames flew out from his palms. With 2 whooshes, they attacked from both sides in the direction of the sound of something breaking through the air. Boom! Amidst the loud sound, sparks flew in all directions. One of them was revealed. It was a heaven-grade magic treasure. It was a giant hammer. It was pitch black and shone with a luster. The giant hammer seemed to have suffered a lot. It swayed and wanted to escape. However, Xiaobai's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. How could he let it escape? "Humph, you want to escape after sneak attacking us? Say." With a wave of his hand, a ball of flames spurted out from his palm and turned into a giant hand of fire. It grabbed the giant hammer. No matter how it struggled, it could not break free from this hand of fire. For the latest novel to read, please visit Chapter 1491. Xiaobai's attack was a success. He was proud of himself and shouted, "Who are you? Why are you hiding? Why don't you show yourself? Let go of my treasure." An angry voice came from the wildlands below. A figure flew into the air. "Oh, the real deal is finally out," Xiaobai said. Tang Zheng's eyes narrowed. The opponent's strength was far beyond Tang Zheng's expectations. It was not because he was very strong, but because he was not strong. Aren't the natives of the outer skies very strong? This person is only in the yuanying stage. That's a bit too low. And he doesn't look young. Most importantly, he's too ugly. This person was indeed very ugly. His face was full of holes, like the surface of the moon. He was not young, so he must have been cultivating for a long time. In the outer skies, it was not considered high to have cultivated for dozens of years. The other party came aggressively and said angrily, "You guys are really like ghosts. We've already retreated to the wildlands, but you guys still found us." Tang Zheng was stunned. He was shocked by the other party's words. The other party seemed to have mistaken them for someone else. Xiaobai was not stupid. He immediately understood the other party's meaning. He looked at Tang Zheng and whispered, "It seems a bit strange." Tang Zheng nodded. Of course he knew what was strange. He doesn't look like your enemy. If he was not Xiaobai's enemy, then he was not a native of the outer skies. Other than that, there were only so-called righteous cultivators in the outer skies. This group of people who were struggling at death's door had unexpectedly fallen to the point of retreating to the wildlands. It could be seen how miserable their situation was. Seeing that Tang Zheng and Xiaobai were whispering to each other and ignoring him, the other party became even angrier. He roared, "You guys have chased us for so many years. I'm tired of running. I'll fight it out with you." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed over. The wind whistled as he crashed into the two of them. "All you have is brute force," Xiaobai said indifferently. He lightly struck out with his palm. Flames swam in the center of his palm and hot waves of air surged out. Boom! The intruder tumbled and fell to the ground at a high speed. "Come back." Tang Zheng finally made his move. The black hole in his palm flickered, and the man was immediately sucked in. He flew back and landed in Tang Zheng's palm. "Let me go, quickly let me go." That person kept struggling, but it was all in vain. If I let you go, do you want to have a taste of his flames? Tang Jing asked jokingly. That person's body stiffened and his expression became unnatural, but he still raised his neck and stubbornly said, "Do you think I'm afraid? Since you're not afraid, why don't you have a taste?" Xiao Bai immediately called out. The flame in his palm seemed to be about to set his hair on fire. Stop, stop, stop. The other party finally showed fear. His face was pale as he bit his lips and said, "A warrior can be killed, but not humiliated. Just kill me." "Yo, you're a tough guy." "Humph, you natives of the sky beyond heaven have killed so many of my compatriots. You don't care about one more life." Seeing that he was facing death with equanimity, he had some backbone, which made him look at him in a new light. Just looking at his appearance at such a close distance, most people would probably vomit last night's meal. His facial features were squeezed together, and there was no highlight at all. A person would always have something to shine about him, but his appearance really made people unable to find a single shining point. "You actually don't dislike me?" Seeing that Tang Zheng was staring at him without blinking, the other party seemed to be very surprised. This was because he had received too many disdainful looks in the past. "What's there to dislike?" Tang Zheng asked in return. "Am I not ugly?" The other party asked guiltily. "Is being disliked because you're ugly? Appearance is given to you by your parents. You can't choose, so why would you dislike it?" Tang Zheng said indifferently. But these words hit the softest part of the other party's heart. His eyes became bright red and he said, "If you weren't a native of the sky beyond heaven, we could definitely be friends." Tang Zheng laughed loudly and asked in return, "Who said I was a native of the sky beyond heaven?" "You're not a native of the sky beyond heaven? Then who else could you be? This is the sky beyond heaven? Are there others?" The other party asked in confusion. "He's a demon." A dignified voice came from afar, and a huge movement came from the ground. Many people came out from underground, like ants crawling out of their nest. They stared at Tang Jing and Xiao Bai like tigers eyeing their prey. "Wild dog, you've been fooled by him. He's a demon, not a native of the sky beyond heaven." The voice sounded again. Tang Zheng's eyes narrowed, and he immediately locked onto the first person in the crowd, Bai Mei Daoist. He was wearing a navy blue robe, and his aura was majestic. No one dared to underestimate him. "So you're called Wild Dog? This name is really unique." Tang Zheng let go of his hand. Wild Dog hurriedly took a few steps back, but immediately stopped, realizing that this was unnecessary. In front of Tang Zheng, Wild Dog was like a 3-year-old child, and there was no room for resistance. Wild Dog looked at Tang Zheng with eyes full of hatred, and it burned even more fiercely than before. He fiercely spat and said, "So you're a demon. You come from the same world, but you kill each other and help the evildoers. You demons are even more annoying than the natives of the sky beyond heaven." TSK, interesting. Tang Zheng looked at the other party with interest. "Why do you think I'm a demon?" Bai Mei Daoist led many people to fly up and said from afar, "Do you think you can hide it from my eyes? Your sky-swallowing technique, others can't recognize it, but how can I not?" Tang Zheng suddenly understood, saying, "So it's because of the sky-swallowing technique. Now you won't deny it, right?" Bai Mei Daoist said proudly. "Did I admit it? It's true that this is the sky-swallowing technique, but who said that the one who uses the sky-swallowing technique is a demon?" Tang Zheng asked. "If you're not a demon, how can you use a demon's divine ability?" Wild Dog asked first. "If I were a demon, I would have killed you long ago. Why would I say so much to you?" Tang Zheng said meaningfully, "It seems that you're all righteous people who have been banished here. The demon race has left the sky beyond heaven, and now you're the only ones left. I didn't expect that your living environment would be so bad that you have no choice but to hide in this wilderness." Tang Zheng sighed faintly, truly shocked by the current situation. The situation of the righteous path was worse than he had expected. Wild Dog spoke without thinking and said angrily, "I don't know what's wrong with those natives, but they've been chasing after us with no regard for their own lives. That's why we have no choice but to hide here." All of this is because of Kingsaman. Bai Mei Daoist said unhappily. Everyone else agreed. That's right, if Kingsaman hadn't angered the natives, they wouldn't have started such a crazy chase. Obviously, most people were pointing the finger at Kingsaman. Kingsaman? Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai looked at each other, and both of them realized this key piece of information. The natives of the sky beyond heaven had started chasing after the righteous path because of the Kingsaman incident. This meant that Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai had saved Kingsaman, and that was why they had such a big reaction. That day, Tang Zheng had exposed his identity as a member of the royal family of Xiao Bai, and that was how he had managed to scare off so many enemies with his divine sense. Who would have thought that this would cause repercussions? They must have wanted to get to the bottom of this, and that was why they attacked the righteous path. Or perhaps, they thought that the righteous path was related to the royal family. Suddenly, the two of them looked at the righteous path with much gentler eyes. After all, they were the ones who had caused this disaster. What happened to Kingsaman? Tang Zheng asked with concern. You know about Kingsaman too? Bai Mei Daoist looked at the two of them suspiciously and asked. I'm related to one of the seniors in their sect. Kingsaman has been colluding with the demons for a long time. Bai Mei Daoist raised his voice and roared angrily. Nonsense. Tang Zheng's expression darkened. He didn't want to bring Kingsaman another disaster because of him. If that happened, Tian Chanzi wouldn't let him off so easily. I've already said that I'm not a demon. If I were a demon, do you think you'd still be standing here? Tang Zheng asked in a low voice. Bai Mei Daoist's expression became very unnatural. He couldn't see through Tang Zheng's cultivation level, so he reprimanded him sternly, You talk big. Tang Zheng ignored his deliberately mystifying behavior and said straightforwardly, Where are the people from Kingsaman? Take me to them. Who do you think you are? You think you're going to meet them just because you say so? Someone said disdainfully. Tang Zheng frowned and said, You've been hunted down by the natives of Beyond Avalon until you're in such a sorry state. All you can do is hide here and struggle at death's door. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Tang Zheng didn't give them any face, mainly because these people's attitudes were too bad. They didn't show any kindness at all. His words hit their sore spot. Many of them stomped their feet and cursed, Where did you come from, kid? Who do you think you are? You're born to a mother but raised by no mother. Born to a mother but raised by no mother. Tang Zheng's sore spot was also hit. Because of his background, this was especially sensitive. Even though he now knew who his parents were, it didn't change much. His eyes turned red in an instant as he locked onto the person in the crowd who was talking nonstop. That person had greasy hair and a powdered face, but he had some cultivation level. Despite his young age, he was already at the 6th level of the divine transformation realm. He could be considered an expert among this group of people. Shut up. Tang Zheng glared fiercely at him and roared at him. His roar was like a clap of thunder, causing everyone's ears to ring. Tang Zheng stretched out his right hand and a black hole immediately appeared in his palm. He locked onto that person from afar. With a single thought, that person flew towards him without any room for resistance. Stop! Bai Mei Daoist yelled. With a whoosh, the horsetail whisk in his hand rose up. As if it had a life of its own, it stood between the two of them. The horsetail whisk swelled up like tentacles as it pierced towards Tang Zheng with a whooshing sound. You dare to hurt my master? You're courting death. Xiao Bai took on the responsibility of protecting his master and grabbed the horsetail whisk with his flaming hand. A dazzling white light bloomed from the horsetail whisk. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1492. The white light in the horsetail whisk was particularly dazzling, colliding with the bright red flames. Xiao Bai subconsciously took a step back, and Bai Mei Daoist did not have it easy either, actually taking 2 steps back. Omega 1 Delta Chinese Net. This seemingly casual strike was enough to determine the winner. Everyone was stunned, incredulous. They looked left at Bai Mei Daoist, right at Xiao Bai, speechless for a long time. Taking advantage of this gap, the young man had already fallen into Tang Zheng's hands without any suspense. his face was pale, and he waved his hands and feet, shouting, "What are you doing?" He was so shocked that he had fallen into Tang Zheng's hands that he broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing this scene, the others finally reacted. Bai Mei Daoist's reaction was the biggest. He immediately rushed forward, shouting, "Put him down, or I'll bury you in this wilderness." Tang Zheng's lips curled into a playful smile, saying, "Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue with such big words? You care so much about him, who is he to you?" Bai Mei Daoist's body stiffened and he stammered, "He's not anyone to me." Wild Dog tilted his head and immediately corrected, "Bai Mei Daoist, he's clearly your son, how is he not anyone to you?" Bai Mei Daoist's face turned cold, and he glared fiercely at Wild Dog, reprimanding, "Wild Dog, if you don't speak, no one will think you're mute." Tang Zheng immediately understood and laughed loudly, "So that's how it is, they're father and son, no wonder you're so worried about him. It's the father's fault if the son doesn't teach him. Did he learn this habit of spouting shit from you?" Because the other party had spoken rudely, Tang Zheng did not say anything good to him. Bai Mei Daoist gritted his teeth, speechless for a moment. "You dare to insult my father? Do you know who he is? He is the alliance leader of the righteous faction. With a single order, all the righteous faction members will chop you into minced meat." The young man fell into Tang Zheng's palm, but he was not content. He continued to shout arrogantly. Tang Zheng made a sound of surprise as he sized up Bai Mei Daoist. His gaze became serious as he said, "Righteous alliance leader. You can actually become an alliance leader with this little bit of cultivation?" He could already see that Bai Mei Daoist was at the second stage of the Mahayana stage, which was indeed not low, but for the leader of the Righteous Alliance to have such a low cultivation base, it was really quite low. But on second thought he felt relieved. The living space of the righteous path was so miserable. They were chased by the natives of the realm beyond heaven and could only hide in this desolate and uninhabited land. This showed that their strength was indeed not strong. This bleak situation made his heart sink. Back then, when the devil race returned, most of their strength was not high. The Mahayana realm was already considered a top expert, not much different from the righteous path. Scared now? Then obediently put me down and beg for my forgiveness. Then I can spare your life. Seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, the young man felt refreshed. Bai Mei Daoist raised his head, seeming to be quite proud of his identity. "Where do you get your confidence from?" Xiao Bai did not like the other side and slapped the young man's face, saying disdainfully, "You dare to hit me?" The young man was stunned. He did not expect that Tang Zheng's lackey would dare to hit him. After all, Xiao Bai had always called Tang Zheng master. The others had also heard it and naturally did not put him in their eyes. Xiao Bai was a member of the imperial family, so how could he be afraid of a young man? He curled his lips and slapped him again. The other side of the young man's face turned red again. The young man was completely stunned. Bai Mei Daoist's cheeks were red, as if the two slaps were on his face. He shouted sternly, "Stop! Who are you people? How dare you come here and behave so atrociously?" Bai Mei Daoist had already begun to suspect the identity of the two people. Tang Zheng kept denying that he was a demon, but Bai Mei Daoist actually believed him a little. Because, even if it was a demon, no one would dare to be so arrogant in front of him and make him lose face. Then the identity of these two people was particularly suspicious. Tang Zheng did not immediately reveal his identity. If the situation was different, perhaps he would have just said that he was from his hometown. But Bai Mei Daoist's attitude made him dispel this idea and decided to observe more. After all, these people had been exiled for hundreds of years and must have changed a lot. Tang Zheng would not be so naive as to tell all his information to the other side. One must always be on guard against others. As for our identity, you will naturally know in the future. Tang Zheng deliberately kept them in suspense. If you don't say, then it means that there is a problem. Bai Mei Daoist said coldly. Tang Zheng frowned slightly. Bai Mei Daoist's attitude made him unhappy, but he did not want to waste his breath on the other side. He said, "Call out the people from Kingsaman. I have something to discuss with them." Kingsaman. They were involved again. Bai Mei Daoist reprimanded, If you want to see the people from Kingsman, you will have to get past US first. Fine, if that's the case, then let me see what you are capable of. Tang Jing did not say anything else. He swung his arm and threw the hostages in his hands away. The young man hurriedly ran behind Bai Mei Daoist and bared his teeth at Tang Jing. His eyes were full of hatred. Bai Mei Daoist immediately gave a look to his left and right. The crowd behind him immediately parted like the tide. Ah, Bai Mei Daoist, are you going to set up the Big Dipper array again? Ha, I am so lucky. This is going to be an eye-opener for me. Wild Dog shouted excitedly. He widened his eyes and stared at the group's every move. Kid, be careful. This array is very dangerous. Be careful. You might lose your life. Wild Dog did not forget to remind Tang Jing. Bai Mei Daoist glared at Wild Dog. He wanted to chop him into pieces. The Big Dipper array? Tang Jing looked at the group with interest. He did not stop them. He had seen the power of Tian Qi, so he was not afraid of ordinary formations. It seemed that the Heavenly Dipper array was not simple, so he was interested in looking at it and studying it. Everyone was already in formation. Bai Mei Daoist was in the center. He stood proudly, exuding an unapproachable aura. The young man stood in the distance, glancing at Tang Jing proudly. He gritted his teeth and said, "Kid, you are dead for daring to slap me. Humph, I will chop you into pieces." Although the righteous faction had declined, but because he was the son of the alliance leader, his status was noble. Countless people flattered him, and he had never suffered such humiliation. "Master, let me do it." Xiaobai volunteered. Tang Jing waved his hand and stepped forward. "I will test their Big Dipper array." He stepped forward. A ball of light blossomed under his feet. He walked in the air, dazzling rays of light blossoming under his feet. If one looked carefully, they would find that these rays of light looked like lotus flowers. Lotus flowers blooming with every step. This was the ability of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Although Tang Jing did not deliberately use it, the Ksitigarbha Sutra had integrated into his words and actions. That was why the lotus flowers appeared without a trace. The Big Dipper array had finished accumulating power. Everyone was chanting and raising their hands. Specks of light rose from their palms and converged in the air. So. The rays of light were like meteors, shooting in one direction. Wild Dog was frightened. He had only heard of the terrifying power of the Big Dipper array. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, his life was not in vain. One had to know that the reason why Bai Mei Daoist could sit on the throne of the righteous faction leader was because of this array. The righteous faction was weak. Even if they gathered everyone's strength, it would be very difficult to resist the pursuit of the natives of the sky beyond sky. But the Big Dipper array improved this problem. The Big Dipper array could gather everyone's strength and pour it into one person, causing that person's strength to rise to the peak. Bai Mei Daoist stood in the center of the array. Rays of light shot towards him from all directions. He was like the focus of a magnifying glass, receiving light and energy from all directions. Boom! A loud sound rang out as all of the light entered White Brow's Daoist body. He raised his head and roared towards the sky. His beard and eyebrows were all white. At this moment, not only were his eyebrows white, but his beard and head were also white. His appearance became crazed, and even a bit ferocious. His whole body exuded a terrifying aura that swept towards Tang Jing. "Master!" Xiaobai called out in a low voice. Tang Jing waved his hand slightly, indicating that he was fine. He raised the hidden mystic sword. Wang! The sword hummed loudly, and a sharp sword light shot out. Poof! With a loud sound, that earth-shattering aura was completely shattered by this sword. It had no effect at all. Tang Jing's casual sword strike did not frighten his opponent. After all, this was just a probing attack. The real show was yet to come. Bai Mei Daoist had finished accumulating power. He glared fiercely at Tang Jing. With a flick of his horsetail whisk, the white horsetail whisk flew up and floated in the air. Chasing the wind and moon, Bai Mei Daoist roared, and a white light shot out from the horsetail whisk. Its speed was extremely fast, as if it was chasing the wind and moon. In an instant, it was in front of Tang Zheng. Its sharpness was not inferior to the sword Qi at all. Tang Zheng shook his wrist and performed the Taiji 2 form swordplay. He had just learned a few new moves, so he quickly performed them to test his actual combat ability. A yin-yang fish appeared in the sky. It was formed by the sword Qi. One was yin and the other was yang. Two black and white swords shot out from the fish's eyes. They intertwined and fell from the sky. Every time the two swords fell a certain distance, the sword Qi became sharper. When it met the white light of the horsetail whisk, it was extremely sharp, as if it could tear the sky apart. Pooh! The sword light hit the white light, and the white light was split into two. The remaining white light seemed to have met its nemesis and hurriedly retreated back into the horsetail whisk. Looking carefully, only half of the whisk's whisk was left. It turned out that the white light was shot out after the whisk's whisk grew longer. Subduing the dragon and tiger, Bai Mei Daoist suffered a loss, but he did not give up. With a roar, he performed a new move. He pointed his finger at the horsetail whisk, and a drop of blood flew into the horsetail whisk, dyeing the white horsetail whisk red. The horsetail whisk immediately had a trace of bloody aura and became extremely dangerous. Chapter 1493. Subduing the dragon and tiger. The blood-red palms collided with the black shoulders, and the air seemed to freeze. Both sides were still, but this scene did not last for long. With a poochie sound, the two swords pierced through the blood-red palms and flew toward White Eyebrows Daoist. The blood-red palm collapsed and turned into streaks of light. The horsetail whisk in front of the White Eyebrows Daoist had changed greatly. Half of the whisk was broken, and it no longer had the power it had before. This White Eyebrows Taoist was stunned, but when he heard the sound of something breaking through the air, he immediately realized the danger. He came to his senses, puffed up his cheeks, and shouted, "Wipe out the universe!" The horsetail whisk flew back into his hand. I held it upside down and stabbed it fiercely in front of me. Although it was in the air, it seemed to be stuck in a very solid rock. The horsetail whisk stood there steadily. Boom! A huge sound rang out from where it was stabbed and a shockwave spread out in all directions. It was as if the universe had been turned upside down. Interesting. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he saw through the clues. This was the White Brow Daoist's desperate attack, so his strength was naturally not to be underestimated. The Big Dipper array gathered the power of many people and poured it into Bai Mei Daoist's body. Although his cultivation did not increase, his combat power increased exponentially. In a short time, his combat power soared to 4th grade Great Ascension stage. That's right, Tang Zheng was at the 4th stage of the Great Ascension stage, so he had a very accurate understanding of the White Brow Daoist's strength. However, Tang Zheng had a divine weapon like the Hidden Profound Sword. How could he be afraid of Bai Mei Daoist? He clenched the Hidden Profound Sword and simply shouted, "Slash!" The hidden sword of Xian slashed forward, and the yin-yang fish in the air began to change. They fell from the sky and became smaller and smaller. In the end, they gathered on the hidden sword of Xian. After one slash, the yin-yang fish and the sword light became one. When the black and white swords encountered the erasing heaven and earth move, they had already been reduced to ashes. Tang Zheng's extremely proficient sword followed closely behind and flew in front of Daoist White Eyebrows. Rumble! It was a shocking blow. Endless light shot out from the point of explosion. In an instant, it was as if a sun had appeared in the sky above the wildlands. The light was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. After a long time, the smoke dissipated and everything returned to normal. Everyone's ears ringing. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai also took a few steps back, but nothing happened to them. On the other hand, the Big Dipper array was completely shattered and their opponents were scattered in the air. Many people even fell to the ground like cannonballs, smashing a big hole in the hard rock. Bai Mei Daoist and his father were one of them. They fell to the ground. Bai Mei Daoist was embedded in the rock, looking very awkward. He coughed violently, blood hanging from the corner of his mouth. He climbed up shakily from the rock and looked at the two people in the sky. He was so shocked that his soul almost left his body. He was sure that they were not demons. The demons did not have such powerful people. Then who could they be? The natives of the Beyond Sky? The natives of the Beyond Sky had always used their strength to crush others. They killed decisively. Why would they say more than a few words to them? Seeing that everyone was looking at him, he wanted to find a hole to hide in. But in the end he resisted the impulse. With a red face, he gritted his teeth and silently looked for a solution. Fighting was not the best choice. This was a lesson learned in blood. What else could he do? He had to pretend to be obedient and figure out the other party's background first. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai looked at each other. Xiao Bai gave a thumbs up and praised, "Master, you're so powerful." Tang Zheng smiled faintly and landed on the ground with Xiao Bai. No one dared to come forward. When they saw him approaching, they retreated in all directions, not daring to confront him. Tang Zheng touched his nose and smiled in his heart. He had shown his power in this battle. It was time to talk properly. "Do you still want to fight?" Tang Zheng stared at Bai Mei Daoist and asked. Bai Mei Daoist gritted his teeth. For a moment he did not know how to answer. But Wild Dog appeared out of nowhere again. With an eye-opening look, he clicked his tongue and praised, "How would he dare to fight? I don't think anyone dares to fight with you." These words made Bai Mei Daoist want to cut him into pieces. Wild Dog did not know. He looked at Tang Zheng with admiration and asked, "How did you cultivate? How could you be so powerful? How many years have you cultivated?" A cultivator's age could not be judged by his appearance. When he cultivated to a certain level, he could change his appearance and stay young forever. After the battle just now, many people subconsciously thought that Tang Zheng must have cultivated for many years. Otherwise, he could not be so powerful. 2 years. Tang Zheng stretched out his fingers and gestured. 2 years. Wild Dog hesitated for a moment. He stared at Tang Zheng's 2 fingers as if he had seen a ghost. He thought he had heard wrong. Come on, even if he had said 20 years, he would not be so shocked. But Tang Zheng said 2 years. Wild Dog hurriedly turned his head to look at the others, as if wondering if he was hallucinating and had misheard. But he had seen the answer from the others' reactions. This man really said 2 years. What could he do in 2 years? Many people did not even reach the threshold, but he had become so powerful. Was he lying? But for a group of defeated people, it seemed that there was no need to lie. White Eyebrows Taoist swallowed his saliva, which was mixed with blood, and asked in bewilderment, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Let me see the people of Kingsman." Tang Zheng calmly said, completely without any murderous aura. With a hurried glance, one would think that he was a harmless neighborhood boy. People under the eaves had to bow their heads. Bai Mei Daoist wanted to refuse, but he could not say it. He could only give his son a look and ordered, "Go and call the people of Kingsman." Well, his son hesitated. "What are you waiting for? I told you to go." Bai Mei Daoist lost his temper and roared. His son didn't dare to hesitate any longer. Like a wisp of smoke, he drilled into a cave. Tang Zheng's gaze slightly shifted as he stared at the cave. He thought to himself that there was actually a completely different world below. These people of the good faction were indeed wronged. They were forced to hide in caves. The Wild Dog could no longer take his eyes off Tang Zheng. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end he could not hold back his curiosity. He leaned over and asked, "Hey, how did you cultivate? Can you tell me a little trick? I have practiced for most of my life and only reached the Yuanying state. I am far from you." Tang Zheng had a good impression of Wild Dog. He even had a better impression of him than Bai Mei Daoist and his son. Then he carefully observed Wild Dog. He couldn't help but be shocked. Although this Wild Dog was ugly, its cultivation talent was definitely not bad. It was even better than most people, and even better than the White Eyebrows Taoist. "Why are you only at the Yuanying state?" Tang Zheng asked. Wild Dog blushed and said angrily, "I am just guessing. No sect is willing to take in people like me." His words could not hide his low mood and even a little self-abasement. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1494. Wild Dog's cheeks were red and he was obviously embarrassed, which made him look even uglier. Tang Jing, on the other hand, ignored his ugliness and was shocked by his words and cultivation. Wild Dog did not have a master to guide him. He had reached the realm of Yuanying by himself. This was not something that ordinary people could do. If Tang Jing did not have Tian Chanzi's guidance and the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll, it was almost impossible for him to advance by leaps and bounds. Although Wild Dog did not reach Tang Jing's cultivation, his strength was not bad. It could be seen that his talent was good and he could definitely beat many people. In Tang Jing's eyes, Wild Dog's talent was better than Bai Mei Daoist. If he was given the same cultivation conditions, Wild Dog's cultivation would definitely be higher than Bai Mei Daoist. Seeing Tang Jing's silence, Wild Dog thought that he was being looked down upon. However, he was already used to this and did not find it strange. Still, he clenched his teeth and said, "I believe that one day, I will definitely not lose to others." Tang Jing's eyes lit up and he stared at him. He said in a deep voice, "I believe in you." What? The Wild Dog raised its head and stared at Tang Jing with its large, suspicious eyes, wondering if it was hearing things. "You believe in me?" he asked doubtfully. Tang Jing nodded. "Yes, I believe that you will not lose to others and make those who once looked down on you feel ashamed." This tone was very sincere, not like ridicule, which made Wild Dog stunned for a moment. Since he was a child, he had never heard other people's affirmation and performance, but a stranger had expressed such great affirmation to him. He was at a loss and thought that he was dreaming. He was sure that Tang Jing was not lying to him, but really expressing his inner opinion. Why do you believe in me?" Wild Dog asked puzzledly. Tang Jing pointed to the others and said, "You are more talented than them and you work so hard. I have no reason not to believe this." Ha! Mocking laughter rang out from the crowd, and it was especially ear-piercing. When Tang Jing looked at the crowd, the laughter stopped abruptly. Obviously, these people thought that Tang Jing's words were a fantasy. Bai Mei Daoist frowned and stared at Wild Dog deeply, as if trying to figure out whether he was real or not. However, he did not have Tang Jing's vision, so he did not see any clues. In his eyes, the Wild Dog was no different from a normal dog. "Thank you." Wild Dog looked at Tang Jing excitedly, his emotions fluctuating like a tidal wave that never stopped rolling. Dong dong dong. A burst of hurried footsteps disrupted this scene. Under the lead of that young man, the distinct void sex people walked over. The mood of the distinct void sex people was very gloomy. They hung their heads dejectedly like stray dogs. The truth was indeed so. They had already lost their homes and caused other righteous path cultivators to leave their homes and become homeless. In the eyes of others, the people of Kingsaman were scourges. They wanted to stay as far away as possible. Tang Jing looked up. He did not have a deep impression of the people of Kingsaman after they left in a hurry last time. However, he remembered a few faces. He recognized a few familiar faces in the crowd. These people were indeed from Kingsaman. The people of Kingsaman looked at the scene in confusion. They had also seen the battle in the sky and were deeply shocked. In their eyes, Bai Mei Daoist was already an invincible figure. They did not expect that an outsider could defeat Bai Mei Daoist so easily. Everyone saw this scene. Bai Mei Daoist's strength was questioned like never before. The people of Kingsaman did not expect that these people were here for them. When they heard the order to come here, they were all stunned. In the end, a few people of high status were chosen and led by the sect master. The people of Kingsaman looked at Tang Jing and Xiao Bai suspiciously. They tried hard to recall, but in the end, they were sure that they had not seen these two people anywhere. But why were these two people looking for them? Bai Mei Daoist waved at the people of Kingsaman and said, "Taik Suzi, these two people are here for Kingsaman. Could it be that Taik Suzi is acquainted with some powerful cultivators? You're really good at hiding." Even an idiot could tell that these words were not friendly. Tang Jing frowned but did not say anything. Instead, he looked at the people who had come. His gaze fell on Taik Suzi first. Back when they were fighting against the natives of the outer world, he was the strongest fighter. It was obvious that he was the leader of this group. He was right. Although Kingsaman had been on the decline for a long time, it was still a sect and naturally had its own group of people. This person's name was Taiksuzi. He was the current sect master of Kingsaman. Taiksuzi was shocked when he heard Baimei Daoist's words. He was furious, but he did not dare to show it. He said angrily, "You're exaggerating, sect master. I don't know these people, and I don't know why they came to Kingsaman. You don't know them, but they lied to you and came to you. Who do you think will believe that?" Baimei Daoist said sarcastically, "Yes, we don't believe it." Many people echoed. It was obvious that they were on the same side as Baimei Daoist. Taishuzi's expression immediately became very unsightly. He looked left and right, not knowing what to do. He had long since known that the distinct void sect was in a very difficult situation. During this period of time, he had been very cautious, keeping his tail between his legs. However, he hadn't expected that these people still wouldn't let him go and would make things difficult for him at every turn. After all, Kingsaman was Tian Chanzi's sect. It was also Fang Shishir's sect. He would not stand by and watch Kingsaman suffer. He took a step forward and walked in front of Taiksuzi. He said, "Everyone from Kingsaman, don't worry. I'm not a bad person. I'm a close friend of a senior from Kingsaman. That's why I'm here to look for you." A close friend of a senior from our sect? Taiksuzi and the others were shocked. They were too familiar with this story. They would never forget it even if they were to die. Moreover, this voice was too familiar. Coupled with these words, they immediately recalled the incident that had happened not long ago. A mysterious voice had scared off the natives of the realm beyond heaven, allowing the final flame of the distinct void sect to survive. They would never forget this kindness. This matter was classified as a secret by the distinct void sect and was not leaked to the outside world. Thus, no one knew the inside story. However, when they saw Taiksuzi and the others' expressions change, the others immediately noticed something was wrong. Their eyes lit up and they stared at both sides without blinking. "Senior, is that you?" Taiksuzi gulped and asked suspiciously. He chose to address them as senior after careful consideration. Since Tang Zheng was a close friend of a senior from Kingsaman, it was natural for him to address them as senior. They would not look down on Tang Zheng just because of his young appearance. Moreover, they were indebted to him for saving their lives. They would address him as senior from the bottom of their hearts. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1495. The word senior confused the others. After all, Taishuzi was a sect master. Why would he call a stranger senior for no reason? Baimei Daoist's eyes darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. Tang Zheng saw the urgency in Taiksuzi's eyes and understood the meaning behind his words. It was obvious that Taiksuzi recognized him as the person who saved Kingsaman. He smiled faintly and said calmly, "It's me." "It's really you?" Taiksuzi was so surprised that he almost screamed. His voice rose a few decibels as he stared at him, unwilling to look away. Back then, he had only heard his voice. From now on, Taiksuzi would remember this face. Everyone in Kingsaman would remember this face. This was their savior. Not only Taiksuzi, but the other Kingsaman people also looked at Tang Zheng with eager eyes. The others were stunned. They wondered why the Kingsaman people were all bewitched. "Senior, thank you for saving us last time." Taiksuzi thanked him sincerely. Tang Zheng waved his hand. "It was nothing. Besides, we go way back." "What? Taiksuzi, you're saying that he was the one who saved you last time when you were besieged?" Baimei Daoist raised his eyebrows. He immediately grasped the main point. Kingsaman was no stranger to the incident where Kingsaman was almost annihilated. Moreover, it was rumored that a mysterious person had saved Kingsaman. It was precisely because of this that the natives of Beyond Avalon hated the righteous path and started hunting them down with unprecedented intensity. Moreover, it was rumored that the expert who saved Kingsaman had always been the target of the natives of Beyond Avalon. The righteous path was just an innocent bystander. That was all that was known to the outside world, but no further details were known. This was Kingseman's secret. After hearing Bai Mei Daoist's question, Taik Suzi hesitated and glanced at Tang Zheng, not knowing how to answer Bai Mei Daoist. He secretly blamed himself for being so agitated and blurting out these things in a moment of desperation. Bai Mei Daoist looked at Taik Suzi's attitude and became furious. Taik Suzi, I can't order you to do anything, right? Don't forget, I'm the leader of the Righteous Alliance. Could it be that you're scheming something that you don't want your fellow Taoists to know about? This time, everyone has suffered an unexpected calamity because of you. You have to make it clear. Don't think you can get away with it. Bai Mei Daoist turned hostile and aggressive. The others also acted as if they had eaten gunpowder. They angrily surrounded the few of them and looked like they wouldn't give up. Taik Suzi was apprehensive, but he didn't back down. He mustered up his courage and said, Alliance leader, how could I be scheming something? This accusation is too big. I, Kingseman, can't bear it. Bai Mei Daoist gritted his teeth and said, Are you saying that I'm framing you? Everyone is here. Everyone can be the judge. Which one of us hasn't been harmed by you, Kingseman? Yet you're acting all mysterious and mystifying. Seeing Kingseman being mocked like this, Tang Zheng couldn't sit idly by. His face darkened and said, Bai Daoist, I was the one who saved Kingseman. So what? So what? That means the rumors are true. The natives of Sky Beyond Sky have been chasing you. They couldn't find you, so they targeted us. That's why we were forced to escape to this place where even birds don't shit. Bai Mei Daoist said sarcastically. Tang Zheng sneered and said jokingly, Aren't you the self-proclaimed leader of the Righteous Alliance? Why are you running? Could it be that running away was the only way out? I think if you continue to run like this, all the souls of the Righteous Alliance will be chased away by you. Tang Zheng glanced around. The Righteous Alliance was indeed filled with a declining aura. They didn't have the spirit that a strong cultivator should have. Bai Mei Daoist was ridiculed. He was furious and scolded, Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this? Your origins are unknown and you've implicated us. This debt, we should settle it with you. Tang Zheng clapped his hands and said, Then you're welcome to settle it with me. After experiencing the battle just now, he already had a rough understanding of the Righteous Alliance's strength. Naturally, he was fearless. Just one sentence was enough to stop Bai Mei Daoist. He didn't have any leeway to resist. He stood there in a daze. He couldn't advance or retreat. He was in a dilemma. The others looked at Bai Mei Daoist. Seeing that he didn't react, they couldn't help but sigh. This was the alliance leader that they had chosen. In the end, he couldn't move forward. It really made them sigh. Bai Mei Daoist gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. But he still didn't dare to move. Because he knew that he wasn't Tang Zheng's opponent. Even the Big Dipper array couldn't defeat Tang Zheng. What else could he do? Since you don't dare to make a move, then don't blabber. Xiao Bai snorted disdainfully, Master, you can continue speaking. If anyone dares to blabber, I'll shut them up. Xiao Bai's aura was very sharp. No one dared to ignore him. Not to mention, the moves that Xiao Bai had revealed earlier made it clear that he was an expert. No one dared to go against him. Just the two of them were able to intimidate over 100 people. It could be seen that the Righteous Alliance had suffered a terrible blow. They didn't even have the slightest bit of confidence. Tang Zheng also sighed inwardly. In the past, he still had great hopes for the Righteous Alliance. But now, he realized that these were all unrealistic fantasies. The Righteous Alliance's boldness was even inferior to the demon race. The demon race's aggressiveness was far greater than the Righteous Alliance's. Moreover, they would find their own way to break out of the encirclement and return to the sky beyond heaven. But the Righteous Alliance had always been trapped in the sky beyond heaven. In fact, the Righteous Alliance wasn't unified internally. This was heartbreaking. Didn't you boast that you're very powerful? Then if you have the ability, go find the natives of the sky beyond heaven. What are you doing in front of us? Who said I won't find the natives of the sky beyond heaven? Tang Zheng asked. What? Everyone was shocked. They thought that they had heard wrongly. I'm going to find the natives of the sky beyond heaven. Tang Zheng said resolutely. He had planned this in advance. It was just that he didn't understand the situation of the sky beyond heaven. Since he had encountered the Righteous Alliance, he naturally had to ask them about it. He didn't have any requests for these Righteous Alliance members. Moreover, seeing these Righteous Alliance members, he was extremely disappointed. Everyone looked at him in disbelief. They felt that he was most likely boasting. Who didn't know how to make irresponsible remarks? Tang Jing didn't intend to persuade anyone. He directly asked Taixuzi, "First, tell me about the current situation of the sky beyond heaven. What's the situation of the natives of the sky beyond heaven?" As soon as these words came out, it caused another round of exclamations. No one expected Tang Jing to ask this. After all, this was common knowledge. No one would go through so much trouble to ask such a common question. Many people couldn't guess the reason behind it. Bai Mei Daoist lowered his head thoughtfully. The origins of these two people are very strange. It's as if they appeared out of thin air. After so many years, I've never heard of such a person. After all, such powerful people are definitely not unknown people. As the leader of the Righteous Alliance, how could I not have heard of them? Moreover, they asked this question the moment they arrived. It's really too strange. Then where did they come from? Could it be that they came from another world? He had a flash of inspiration and an unbelievable idea popped up. That's not very possible, right? He shook his head and rejected this idea. After all, this was too shocking. In these hundreds of years, he had never heard of anyone who could break through the spatial restriction and come to the sky beyond heaven. Bai Mei Daoist was no stranger to the spatial restriction. It was just that he didn't have the ability to break through the spatial restriction. Impossible, impossible. How could he have the ability to break through the spatial restriction? I must be imagining things. However, after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't figure out Tang Zhang's origin. Although Taixuzi had many doubts in his heart, he still said everything he knew. The situation in the sky beyond heaven is very complicated. In the past, when the Devil Clan was still around, there were a total of 4 forces. Now that the Devil Clan is gone, there are only 3 forces left. 3 forces? How can there be 3 forces? Tang Zheng was shocked. Xiao Bai raised an eyebrow. He was also attracted. According to common sense, shouldn't there be only the Righteous Alliance and the natives of the sky beyond heaven? Where did the 3rd force come from? Seeing that the two of them didn't understand the situation in the sky beyond heaven, many people had more doubts in their hearts. However, no one interjected. Just now, they were all shocked by Tang Zhang's aura. Taixuzi continued, "The Righteous Alliance is naturally one of them. The other 2 forces are the natives of the sky beyond heaven." There are 2 forces in the natives of the sky beyond heaven? Yes, there are 2 forces, one big and one small. Moreover, we've encountered them before. The big force is our sworn enemy and wants to kill us. These are the Righteous Alliance, while the small force coexists peacefully with us. They don't take the initiative to cause trouble and are known as the opposition. The Righteous Alliance and the opposition? Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai looked at each other. This was indeed a new piece of news. Who was the opposition? How dare they go against the Righteous Alliance? From what Tang Zheng had seen and heard last time, the official power was extremely strong. Who would eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts to go against them? Actually, we're also very curious about the identity of the opposition. However, we're still outsiders to the sky beyond heaven. After so many years, we still haven't figured it out. Taixuzi said and cast a meaningful look at Tang Zheng. Back then, when Tang Zheng was bluffing and scaring the natives of the sky beyond heaven, he only revealed a little bit of information. He called those people traitors. Therefore, Taixuzi guessed something. Could it be that Tang Zheng was related to the opposition? Tang Zheng understood the look in Taixuzi's eyes, but he couldn't answer him. After all, he didn't know the identity of the opposition. Didn't Xiao Bai say that the royal family has been completely wiped out? The Red Lunar Beast also said that the remaining royal family members were all sacrificed. Who would dare to go against the Righteous Alliance? Isn't this the same as eating a bear's heart and a leopard's guts? Tang Jing shook his head and said in amazement, "It seems that no world is united. Even the sky beyond heaven is divided into two forces. If that's the case, I'm interested in visiting the opposition. To read the latest novel, please visit." Chapter 1496. As Taixuzi explained, Tang Jing and Xiao Bai gained a general understanding of the situation in Beyond Avalon. However, they were both interested in the so-called opposition. 81 Chinese Omega Network. No matter who the opposition was, since they dared to openly oppose the government, it was naturally possible to rope them in. When he heard that Tang Jing wanted to visit this power, Bai Mei Daoist snorted and said, "This group of people is very secretive. We haven't been able to find them after so many years. You want to visit them? What a fool's dream." After hearing this ridicule, Tang Jing did not back down. He glanced at him and said, "Just because you can't find them doesn't mean that others can't." White eyebrows Daoist suddenly froze. He held his breath and said, "Then you think that you're blind and don't know anything, but you're more powerful than all of us righteous Dao people?" All these years, the good faction had not given up on finding the opposition. After all, the enemy of one's enemy could become one's friend. However, things did not go according to plan. In the end, they came up empty-handed. Tang Jing did not say anything. The answer was self-evident. Bai Mei Daoist and the other people's expressions darkened. However, the people of Kingsaman did not have much of a reaction. They seemed to believe Tang Jing's words. After all, they had seen how Tang Jing could scare off the enemy with just a few words. Therefore, they were very confident in his abilities. Since they had confirmed their target, Tang Jing did not plan to argue with Bai Mei Daoist. Since they were on different paths, they could not work together. After all, they would not be able to provide any valuable clues. "Kingsaman is with us. What else can we do?" Tang Jing asked Taixuzi. Taixuzi immediately fell into a dilemma. This was not only related to his life and safety, but also to the hundreds of people in Kingsaman. This was not a decision he could make with just a few words. After all, he had experienced the dangers of the outside world. If anything happened to him, he would be a sinner in Kingsaman. However, Tang Jing had saved everyone in Kingsaman, and his strength was extraordinary. If they followed him, they might have a better future than staying in the wildlands. Bai Mei Daoist's expression changed drastically. He stared at Taixuzi sternly and said, "Taixuzi, if you want to leave, you will be betraying the righteous path. Think about the consequences. From now on, you can forget about having a foothold in Kingsaman." Bai Mei Daoist's direct threat made Tang Jing's brows furrow even tighter. But after a while, he figured out the whole story. The reason Bai Mei Daoist had such a big reaction and said such harsh words was because he was afraid of something. Although Kingsaman was a small sect, it was still a member of the righteous path. If Bai Mei Daoist allowed Kingsaman to leave, there would definitely be a crack in the alliance of the righteous sects. If Bai Mei Daoist's authority was challenged and questioned, others would question it again in the future. Then, other sects would be tempted to leave the alliance of the righteous sects. After all, no one wanted to be suppressed by others, especially the leaders of the various sections. In the past, no one had ever taken the lead. Now that Taixuzi had taken the lead, others would naturally follow suit. This concerned the survival of the alliance of the righteous sects. Bai Mei Daoist dared not be careless. Taixuzi was a little slower, but he also understood this point. His departure would not only affect the safety of Kingsaman, but also the survival of the alliance of the righteous sects. What should he do? Taixuzi looked left and right. For a moment, he was unsure of what to do. After all, he did not know Tang Jing well. Once he left the alliance of the righteous sects, he would be in great danger. Staying in the wildlands would at least be safe for the time being. Most importantly, Bai Mei Daoist was not a kind person. Instead, he was a narrow-minded person. He would definitely deal with those who dared to betray him in public. The danger that Kingsaman would face would not only come from the officials of the Beyond Avalon, but also from Bai Mei Daoist. It would not be a good feeling to be attacked from both sides. Taik Suzi wanted to retreat. He looked at Tang Zheng with shame and lowered his head. He said, "Senior, I'm sorry. Kingsaman is very weak after this catastrophe. We can't take it anymore. We need to recuperate." Before he could finish, Tang Zheng waved his hand and interrupted him. He comforted him, "Don't feel burdened. I respect your decision." As he spoke, his eyes became sharp, like a sharp knife shining with cold light. He glanced around fiercely and finally, his eyes fell on Daoist white eyebrows. "However, if anyone dares to cause trouble for Kingsaman, they will be going against me. When the time comes, I will make them regret ever being born into this world." This sentence was too threatening. This was the effect that Tang Zheng wanted. He wanted to make a direct threat. Even if you don't want to admit defeat, you have to hold it in. Bai Mei Daoist snorted coldly. His expression was extremely ugly. Taik Suzi was very excited. This was equivalent to Tang Zheng giving Kingsaman a protective talisman. At least, Bai Mei Daoist would not dare to act rashly for the time being. This was more than enough. "Senior, may I know your name? Everyone in Kingsaman will remember your great kindness in the future." Taik Suzi said gratefully. "My name is Tang Zheng." Tang Zheng spoke the truth. "We will meet again in the future." Taik Suzi asked, "Senior Tang, may I know which senior in my sect you know?" Tang Zheng hesitated. He wanted to say Tian Chanzi's name, but he held back in the end. He said, "You will know when you meet him in the future." "There is still a senior in my sect who is still alive?" "Of course." Not only the people of Kingsaman, but everyone else was also shocked. In the world of cultivation, a senior in a sect was a real master. He could even decide the rise and fall of a sect. Although the distinct Void sect was currently in decline, if this senior were to return, then the distinct Void sect might have a chance to soar into the sky and regain its former glory. At that moment, not only Bai Mei Daoist, but also the other orthodox cultivators looked at Kingsaman in a different light. They did not dare to look down on them as before. Tang Zheng turned around and left. Under the gazes of the crowd, he gradually walked away, leaving behind a group of people in the savage land. They looked at each other in dismay and fell into a long period of shock. After a long time, the orthodox cultivators went underground again. Only the cold wind swept over the desolate rocks, as if it was telling the story of what had just happened. No one noticed, but a figure quietly appeared on the ground and quickly chased in the direction Tang Zheng had left. In a natural cave, after being carved and chiseled by knives and axes, it looked magnificent and magnificent. It did not fit in with the environment of the wildlands. Bai Mei Daoist and his son sat facing each other. They could not hide the burning hatred in their eyes. "Father, are we just going to take it? I can't take this lying down." Bai Mei Daoist looked at his son and said in a low voice, "Do you know why I named you Sacrificing Life? I want you to sacrifice the lives of others in order to protect yourself. Even the lives of everyone in the world. A trifling person of unknown origin also wants to give orders in my territory and break the pattern. Then we can only sacrifice their lives." Daoist Master White Eyebrows said with a murderous aura. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.